Please.
That's all right.
fine.
Sure. So, when you're talking about a permitted use, and this is a permitted use, it's permitted by the redevelopment plan. When we talk about traffic, sometimes the term traffic can be a little bit misleading in terms of what the board is supposed to look at. When we say the applicant's traffic expert, really what we're looking at as site circulation on site, making sure that the on-site circulation works. We're also making sure that the turning movements into and out of the property, that this development site are safe and that they're going to function and it's going to operate with a certain level of standard of traffic safety and function, realistically being able to function. We're not, planning boards don't review things like trip generation for permitted uses when we talk about traffic. So if the proposed use is permitted and proposed is a cancer hospital, and that involves construction of a multi-story parking structure, then what we have to assume when the council zoned the property is that they are permitting and encouraging those levels of traffic that would come with a cancer hospital, a parking deck, that those levels of traffic are anticipated for this property. So we don't have the ability to say, too much traffic as a reason to not approve a permitted use. It's sort of baked into when you zone, you anticipate that whatever uses you're permitting, that those uses are going to generate commensurate levels of traffic. So for example, if it was a warehouse zone, the council wouldn't be able to zone for warehouse uses and then a planning board turn around and say, well, sorry, too many tractor trailers. When you zone, you anticipate that you're going to get that level of trip generation. What the planning board really looks at is circulation. Does the flow work? Is the driveways, the design, those sorts of elements? And that's what we talk about with traffic. I had some questions about the traffic for Mr. Issues that level of service is going to function at those locations. That was my traffic concern, and it's been satisfied. So I hope that helps.
Thank you, Mr. Butler.
Thank you.
And Mr.
Do you have any other questions, Mr. Cardica?
Madam Chair.
No other questions. When time permits, I'd like to make a statement, though.
No, you can do that now.
This is relevant to not just the parking deck, but also the both applications. Is that permissible at this time, or are we just entertaining discussion on the parking deck?
Just the parking deck at this point.
Correct.
Okay.
May I just interject one point? I'm sorry, Mr. Cardica, if I may.
Yeah.
The questions, and I echo what Mr. Fletcher had provided to you in terms of information. There's also the DNR report dated January the 8th, Friday, and section 2 talks about pedestrian vehicular movements. As Todd had so eloquently put it, the purpose of the planning board's review is to really look at on-site circulation and safety on the site. That has been addressed in Mr. Carley's memos dated January the 8th. The off-site traffic generation, as Todd has indicated, is something that this board ought not to consider and cannot consider because it is a permitted use. And in permitting this specific use, the generation of traffic was anticipated. And as Todd has also mentioned, there was ample testimony from the from the traffic engineer that the applicant put on as to his belief on off-site traffic generation and how that would impact the surrounding neighborhood.
Okay, thank you.
Any other board members have any questions? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Ask about further questions first.
Are you sure?
Yes, let me consider my statement.
Okay, very good. Do any other members of the board have any questions, or would they like to make a statement?
John Petrolino, I would like to provide my thoughts on the record. So first thing that I would like to say is that I think any community would be very fortunate to have a cancer pavilion such as being proposed developed in their municipality. They are the generators of cutting edge medicine for cancer patients and provide therapies that otherwise aren't available to folks. They save lives. So in that respect, I applaud the initiative of the city and Robert Wood Johnson to bring this type of development to New Brunswick. That having been said, I heard Mr. Itall's opinion, but I respectfully disagree. In my mind, and I will take your example and apply it to the current proposal, whereby it would be appropriate to deny an application based upon, we'll call it a frustration of a civic purpose, the inability of a fire engine to reach a particular parcel based upon lack of roads. And of course, the question of whether or not there's a lack of roads is, of course, a question of fact. Is a dirt lane a road? Does it have to be a paved road? Does it have to be a 2-lane road? Does it have to have a fire hydrant? There are a number of layers that underpin that discussion. And I feel, from my perspective, that the traffic statement, which was offered as an exhibit by the applicant and testified to by Mr. DeSario, clearly laid out a significant deficiency with regards to level of service at those very intersections that service the current Robert Wood Johnson facility, including a level 1 trauma center. That is a facility that provides life-saving measures to folks arriving, whether by ambulance or private vehicle. It is one of 3 level 1 trauma centers in New Jersey. To have the ingress and access, which are serviced by the same intersections that were discussed in Mr. DeSario's report, be so degraded to the point whereby it is reasonably likely to become impassable, has the potential to significantly and realistically result in people's access being denied in a timely manner, potentially resulting in worsening outcomes up to and including death. And I think that that's not an overstatement or a hyperbole. I asked Mr. DeSario yesterday if there were any reasonable conditions that he could propose that the board could consider to ameliorate those conditions, and Mr. DeSario said that there were none. So for that reason, and this is my articulation of my reason per Mr. Itall's suggestion, that I would not vote to support this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Petrolina. Do any other board members have any questions or statements they'd like to make in regard to this application?
Yeah, this is Bob Kartika again. I'd like to weigh in at this point. I think I indicated last night, I think it should be clear that based on the questions that I posed last night, that I have some concerns with possible condemnation of properties that may result from the construction of this parking deck, as well as the financing of the parking deck. My concern, of course, relates to the hopes that taxpayer dollars are not used to finance this board. However, I've been advised by our attorney that these factors cannot be considered in our vote. And even though I have these concerns, I feel it's essential that we conduct ourselves in a manner consistent with the municipal land use law. And since the applicant has not requested any variances as part of the application, I just want to say that's going to strongly influence my vote on this matter. So I'm just sharing my thoughts and providing some rationale for my prior to casting my vote.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cardica. Much appreciated. Do any other board members have any comments or statements they'd like to put on the record at this point? I'm hearing none. So Dan, do we have a list of conditions that you could read for the application?
Ms. Pinello?
Yes, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, okay. This is Katie Pinello, Principal Planner for the City of New Brunswick. Should the board act favorably on this application, we recommend the following conditions of approval. Compliance with the terms of the DNR report dated January 8th, 2021, and the City Engineering report dated September 8th, 2020 for this project. Submission of any necessary easements and/or cross-access easements for review and approval by the board attorney and city engineer prior to filing of same. Payment of a site performance bond in an amount reviewed and approved by the city engineer. Submission of a site inspection escrow deposit for the engineering inspection fees in an amount calculated pursuant to Title 16-24-160. Payment of all water and sewer connection fees pursuant to Titles 1304 and 1308. Issuance of a road opening permit from the city engineer if required. The applicant shall schedule a pre-construction meeting with the city engineering department. Compliance with the terms of the Bignell Planning Report dated December 9, 2020 for the project. Payment of a developer fee to the City of New Brunswick, a redeveloper fee to the City of New Brunswick if required. Planning review escrow funded for all anticipated post-approval reviews. Payment of any other fees due to the City of New Brunswick related to the development or use of this project. Payment of all outstanding taxes and water sewer fees. Middlesex County Planning Board approval or waiver. DNR Canal Commission approval or waiver. Freehold Soil Conservation District approval or waiver. Any other agency approval or waiver as required. Submission of engineering or architectural plans to comply with any changes required by the planning or engineering memos or plan amendments offered at the hearing, if any. All utilities and other site improvements to be maintained by the applicant at their sole expense. All on-site utilities to be constructed underground. All temporary encroachments into the public right-of-way shall require city council approval. All construction staging shall be done on-site unless an encroachment allowing into the public right-of-way is approved by city council. Streets shall be kept clean of sediment and debris. The applicant shall cause the streets to be cleaned if directed to do so by the Director of Public Works. Tracking pads shall be installed at all construction exits. Replacement of damaged streets, curbs, and sidewalks per the direction of the city engineer. The applicant is not requesting any variances, and they are requesting preliminary and final site plan as part of this application. And that's all I've got.
Thank you, Katie. I'll now entertain a motion. Anybody from the board, a motion? Do I hear a motion from the board?
Sorry, I was having trouble unmuting. I make a motion to vote.
I'll second.
Motion
Let's
to-
go.
Okay.
Dan?
Yeah, I'm just jotting down the names. All right. Yulitsa Checo,
Yes.
Matt Ferguson.
Dan, before you proceed, I just want to clarify because I'm writing this down. This is a motion to approve, motion to deny.
Motion to approve. My apologies.
Thank you.
Thank you. So Yulitsa Checo, yes. Matt Ferguson,
Yes.
Suzanne Sikora Ludwig,
Yes.
Ryan Berger,
Yes.
Diana Lopez,
I abstain.
Bob Cardica,
Yes.
John Petrolino.
Nope.
Okay.
Motion carries.
Yep.
The application is approved.
you.
Next, we'll move on to the, I'm sorry, Mr. Liebling, go ahead.
I just want to say thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. The next order of business is PB 2020-11, final major site plan application to construct an 11-story, 519,500 gross square foot building, the Rutgers Cancer Institute of New Jersey Cancer Pavilion, house outpatient and inpatient care, research facilities, and administrative space associated with RWJ Barnabas Health and Rutgers. No variances are requested. The site is located in the Healthcare Research Pavilion redevelopment plan area. Mr. Liebling, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Charles Liebling, Windell's Marks, Lane of Mittendorf, New Brunswick, appearing on behalf of Cancer Pavilion Redevelopment Associates LLC. The chair gave the description of the application. We received preliminary site plan approval on November 10th, resolution approved on December 7th. And the board imposed the condition as part of preliminary site plan approval that approval of the garage structure be obtained before final site plan approval for the pavilion would be granted. Moments ago, that approval for the garage was granted. That condition has now been satisfied, and we're here to request final site plan approval of the pavilion.
Thank you, Mr. Liebling. Dan, can you state that all conditions that were placed on this application by the board for final site plan approval have been met?
Yes, they have.
Okay, and now I'll ask, do any of the professionals have any questions?
Yeah, Madam Chair, this is Todd Bletcher. I did issue a revised report dated December 29th, 2020. And in it, I just did go through all of the items that we had requested at the initial preliminary approval, and noted all of those items that we had requested were either addressed through testimony or satisfied. We do have some outstanding items that we're waiting for that I would call resolution compliance items. We're still waiting for outside agency approvals, Middlesex County, freehold soil, some documentation from the applicant dealing with the connection to the property, and then some sort of documentation relative to the air rights or easement rights for the tunnel or the bridge that's going to go across the city right of way. There'll need to be some documentation for air rights or easements to just facilitate that. All of those items I would consider things that we could take care of at resolution compliance. They're not, anything to hold up a conforming site plan for. So they're sort of cleanup items, and otherwise everything else has been satisfied and provided.
Thank you, Todd.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other professional testimony at this point?
No.
Hearing none. Do any board? Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, there's no additional comments really from the engineering department. Mr. Carley had issued an updated review letter dated January 11, 2021, which had updated his review based on recent testimony provided by the applicant. And again, similarly, there's some resolution compliance items in there, but there's no other outstanding comments that would hold up a recommendation of the board voting.
Madam
Thank
Chair,
you.
this is.
I was just going to ask, Mr. Ital, it's my understanding that the only condition this board is considering tonight is what we placed on it during preliminary for final, and that was the approval of the garage. Is that correct?
That's correct. There are resolution compliance conditions, which I believe both the planner and engineer and the board secretary indicated would carry from the preliminary approval to a final site plan approval if this board was to grant final site plan approval this evening. So that's not a condition of the preliminary approval. It's a condition to get construction permits, essentially. They're standard conditions to comply with, otherwise they won't be able to construct the facility or the proposed development. However, from a legal perspective, all of the conditions of the preliminary approval that were conditioned prior to seeking or obtaining final site plan approval have been met.
Thank you for that explanation. That being said, do any board members have any questions? Hearing none, I will now open up the meeting to the public for comment on this application only. That would be for the final major site plan application. Dan, can you please prepare a list?
Certainly, Madam Chair. Just let me get my language out.
Madam Chair, I did want to object and make a case under Rule 2:2-3D. I sent your secretary and your counsel a request. I do have a witness I'd like to call. It seems like this would be the appropriate time to do it before you open to the general public. Is that going to be allowed, or?
Mr. Ital, I was not in receipt of a letter. What is your ruling on this?
I haven't received a letter either, Madam Chair.
Mr. Dominguez told me he got it. He's your secretary.
Mr. Dominguez,
Mr.
did you
Ital,
receive a letter?
Mr. Cradaville sent me an email at 6:51 p.m. today requesting to be an objector at this meeting.
It could certainly.
I'm sorry. I just want to point out it builds on a series of letters where I've asked to be an objector.
Mr. Ital?
Well, I don't know who his witness is. Mr. Liebling, did you receive any correspondence indicating that your client's application for final site plan approval is being objected to with a witness?
I didn't, and obviously subject to your determination on behalf of the board, Mr. Ital, if we had put on a case this evening, then I think the board could at least entertain whether or not Mr. Cradaville would be permitted to proceed with the case. A case is to refute testimony that an applicant puts on so that the board can weigh the credibility of the witnesses. There's no, to my mind, there's no such thing as an objector's case when there has been no testimony by the applicant placed in the record.
Mr. Liebling, Madam Chair, I would tend to agree that there's, at this point, Mr. Cradaville's, I guess, 11th hour attempt to call a witness to object to a final site plan being granted based upon the conditions being met. He can certainly opine about whether the final all of the conditions have been met in public comment period. Mr. Cradaville, who is your witness?
My witness is Nishad Datta.
And is it Nishad Datta, D-A-T-T-A?
Yes.
Correct.
Is that the same Mr. Datta who's appeared on this prior application, also this application in the past?
I don't recall if he's spoken on this application, but I do want to object to the relief sought. And under your rules, it's very clear any objectors wishing to present a case.
Mr. Cradaville, if I could just
I'm sorry?
ask questions, you can determine whether there is some standing here. So,
Sure.
What's the proffer for Mr. Datta? What is the proffer?
Mr. Datta lives in the neighborhood, has been a resident of the neighborhood for several years.
Okay, and?
My family's also been in this neighborhood since 1991. We can trace our roots in the United States back to this neighborhood.
Okay, and Mr. Datta is present, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
I would have no objection to Mr. Datta, Madam Chair, speaking when his opportunity comes. But in terms of presenting him as a witness, it does not appear that he is a witness to refute the final site plan approval, which is essentially whether the conditions have been met. It seems that the proffer is that he is a long-term resident, which certainly would be a commentary that he could provide in public portion, but not by way of being called by Mr. Cradaville as a witness.
Well, I would add that he was also a witness to the proceedings last night. And if the condition that you're focusing in on is the condition of the parking deck approval, Mr. Datta was a witness and a participant in the proceedings last night. And I think it would be very appropriate for me to be able to question him about that, as well as other matters relevant to the application. I don't understand why
the applicant gets to put whatever they want on the record. No one ever is turning them down. But here, I try to play by the rules. You change the rules. I follow the rules last night. I say I want to make an objection. I don't say I want to witness. I just want to present my evidence, my documents that I put on the record according to your rules. I was denied last night the ability to do that. Now, and the grounds was that I didn't have a witness. Well, now tonight, I'd like to object to this application, this relief being sought, and I have a witness. So I don't see how you can read these rules and follow them and still deny me the right to make a case. It's very clear. Any objector wishing to present a case in objection to the relief sought may do so in such order as may be recognized by the chair. And I have the right to call witnesses. I don't have to call witnesses. I have the right to introduce documentary or other evidence, but I don't have to do either of those two things. I can do one or both of those things. And so I don't understand. I'm trying to play by the rules. You told me last night, no witness, you can't make a case. Well, now I have a witness. I'd like to make a case.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Eichel, yes,
yeah,
please. I would just like your direction to the board at this point so we can make a ruling and move on here.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I believe that Mr. Cradaville and Mr. Dotter are both present and can certainly make public commentary when it's their turn.
Okay, thank you. We'll proceed in that manner. You can sign up
Objection.
for public comment.
Charlie Cradaville is being denied his legal right to be an objector and call witness to present that testimony.
This is the first warning to the public that we're going to maintain decorum during this meeting.
Objection is not breaking decorum.
We're going to proceed with gathering a list so we can get public comment on the record. Dan, if you can please proceed.
Can the board explain, excuse me for 1 second, can the board explain what qualifies as a qualified witness?
Can we please proceed with public comment? You can ask those questions during the public comment portion.
You could just answer it.
They're clarifying comments for the public so that they can understand the framework of the meeting.
If the public continues to do this, this is the third warning. Dan, I'm going to ask you to mute everybody and we'll go through the list one by one to get public comment if we have to.
The public has the right to object to the proceedings of the meeting. The public has the right to question the framework so I'm sure it's going according to law. We have those rights.
Okay, the public has been warned.
For the record, I just want to be clear, I'm not being allowed to make a case under that rule.
Dan.
Yes or no?
All members of in attendance have been muted, and I will begin to unmute the board, starting with the chair, as I find her. Actually, this is going to be a problem. So I have to unmute a few people who are on the phone, as I'm not sure where Bob and Suzanne are. So we'll address that as needed. All right, Mr. Kartika.
I'm here.
Chairwoman Suzanne Sikora. Let's see. *6 if you're on the phone. Chairwoman Sikora. All right, let's try it again. Chairwoman Sikora, try it again.
Yes, I'm here now, Dan.
Okay, thank you.
So do we have our board back?
I do believe we have our board back. I'll go through roll real quick just to make sure that the folks have unmuted themselves or are around. So let's see. Yalitza Checa,
Here.
Matt Ferguson,
Here.
Suzanne Sikora Ludwig,
Here.
Ryan Berger,
Here.
Diana Lopez,
Here.
Bob Cardica,
Here.
John Petrolino. John's, I can't hear him, but he's here. So we're all here. Madam Chair, we're all here.
Okay, I want to proceed with a list. What will be the process that you have available to you? Can we unmute people? Can they raise their hand to get put on a list, or do we have to unmute everybody? What do you suggest we do for process?
Well, my recommendation would be to attempt to reopen it and hope for an orderly list taking.
Okay, we can attempt that a second time then.
All right. All right, so everyone is now able to self-unmute for when we take the list of names for comment. Now, before I read the my general spiel of sorts, I think it might be prudent, time constraints, and we've had some of these meetings very long. Even last night ran less long than usual, but it was still very long. I would offer a recommendation to the chairwoman and to the board to limit public comment to 3 minutes per person for the public comment for the final site plan approval.
Considering that this is an application that relies only on the approval of the prior application that we just had, I have no objection to that if no other board members do. Okay, hearing none, Dan, proceed with 3 minutes.
Thank you. At this time, we're preparing to open the meeting to public comment on the final site plan approval application for the Cancer Institute Pavilion for 3 minutes per person, in order to assure that the planning board can hear from the interested public and that the public can hear public comments. I will organize the speakers in order by last name. In a moment, I will unmute the public call, and at that time, I will ask for those with last names starting with A to provide me your last name, first name, and home address. I will confirm that the information is correct, and then move on to the next person alphabetically from A to Z. Upon completion of asking for all last names from A to Z, ask one more time for anyone who would like to be placed on the initial list of speakers, and then we will close the list of speakers. We will then move through the list of speakers by calling the person by name and permitting them 5 minutes to speak. After that, and I will close the public comment portion. Please be mindful that your voice is being telephonically transmitted and speak slowly and clearly for the benefit of all. I will ask that you please remain silent when I initially unmute the phones or when folks unmute themselves. *6 if you're on phone, below microphone button if you're on computer, so we can all hear each other and begin the speaker registration process. Now that everything is unmuted, I will ask that members of the public on the phone who would like to comment on this application with the last name starting with A, please state your full name, home address. A, B,
Jean-Luc Bourget, 116 Lewis Street.
Jean-Luc Bourget. C.
I'm B. My name is Nick Roncotti. I'm from Red Bank, New Jersey, and I'm a concerned citizen.
Can you please state your name again? I couldn't hear it over the background noise. I apologize.
Yeah, sure, no problem. Nick, Nick, and then Brancotti, which is BRUNCATI. Sorry, I have a long last name.
Thank you. That's fine. All right. C.
Elizabeth Ciccone.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Ciccone.
Michael Capobianca.
All right. So after Ciccone, I heard Michael Capobianca. Is that correct?
Yeah, 68 Townsend.
Okay. Was there anyone else for C?
Yes, hello. My name is Nicole Chevalier.
Nicole Chevalier.
Yes.
Address?
50 Jones.
Thank you. All right. D?
D, data.
Mika Deitch.
Okay. D'Amica Deitch. And then data. Hold on. Deitch. And then
Riley Denbo.
Riley Denbo. But for what was the first name for data?
First name is Nishad. It's spelled November, India, Sierra Hotel, Alpha Delta.
Okay. Data. Thank you. All right. E. F. G.
G.
I'm sorry?
G. Gonzalez.
Okay. First name and address?
Araceli, A-R-A-C.
Araceli Gonzalez.
4501 North Oaks in North Brunswick.
Oh, okay. H. I. J.
Yo, Mingjiao.
Mingjiao. Address?
20 Nelson.
Okay. L.
All right, Gradeville.
Oh, all right. I got you, Mr. Gradeville. L. M.
Yes, Matthew Mione.
Matthew Mione. All right. N. O. P.
Peterson, Michael.
Peterson. Michael. Address?
24 Moak Drive.
Okay. Q. R. S.
Bobby Rosu.
Bobby, I missed your last name. What was the R?
Abby Rosu.
Rosu. Okay. S.
Miguel Romero.
Oh, Miguel Romero. Okay.
Linda Stork.
Okay, I got Miguel Romero address and then Linda Stork also.
331 Somerset Street.
Okay. Linda Stork address.
Gulf Park Boulevard.
Thank you. T. U.
Ruth Tucker.
Okay. What was the first name?
Ruth.
I'm sorry, I couldn't make that out.
R-U-T-H.
Oh, Ruth. Okay, thank you. Address?
19 Union Street.
Thank you. U. V. W. X. Y. Z. Is there anyone that we missed?
Yeah. Olivia Witchmeyer at W.
W. Olivia Woodshire. Is that correct?
Wishmeyer.
Oh, Wishmeyer. Address?
1 Adams Place.
All right, thank you. All right. Anyone else?
Victor Vaughn, 10 Landing Lane.
Victor Vaughn. Okay. Anyone else? All right. The list is now closed. Madam Chair, our first speaker here is Jean-Luc Bourget. Aravind, do I need to swear in the commenters or no? Oh, I need to okay, sorry. All right, I have to allow you to unmute, Mr. Hightower.
Thank you. I said that, yes, you will need to swear them in. They'll have to spell their name, say their name, spell their last name, and then state their address for the record.
They gave their address when they
For the record.
Okay, so they'll have to state it again.
Just so that we.
Okay, all right. I'm just clarifying.
We didn't
so that we have the.
Right, I didn't get the spelling of the last name. I'm
okay.
Good at
That's
spelling.
fine. That's fine.
Sure.
That's mine. All right, Jean-Luc Bourget, are you present?
Yes. Hello, members of the planning board.
Okay. Please state your name, spell your last name, and give your address for the record.
Jean-Luc, Jon-Luc, Bourget, Bourget, 116 Lewis Street, New Brunswick, New Jersey, 08901.
Jean-Luc Bourget, do you swear affirm to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Of course, esteemed
You're
members of the planning board. So because there has been confusion about this in the past, I would like to ask, this is the general public commentary portion where we are not limited in topic, or do our topics and what we say have to be in the confines of being relevant to the project? And if that is the case, which projects are we currently allowed to comment on? The parking deck or the pavilion or both?
I will answer you, sir. This is the public comment portion on this application for the Cancer Pavilion final site plan application that relied on the parking deck application. So this is the only comment on that. You will have another opportunity later for general public comment towards the end of the meeting.
So if I have questions that are still relevant for the parking deck, am I permitted to still ask them?
That would be general public comment towards the end of the meeting.
I see. What exactly are we allowed to comment or ask about during this phase?
That's the thing. There was no testimony by witnesses for this application. They only had to come back because they were waiting on approval of the parking deck, and they met that criteria to move forward with the major site plan approval. And that is the only thing that can be commented on.
Is the approval of the parking deck itself?
The Cancer Center.
The approval of the Cancer Center?
Excuse me, sir.
A minute warning.
Is this is our comment section limited to the pavilion, or the fact that the parking deck was approved?
The Cancer Pavilion final site plan approval.
What's them working in the way?
I see. Okay.
On anything that Mr. Liebling said tonight, because there were no witnesses, you can't ask questions, relative to the actual Cancer Pavilion, but you can ask questions of anything that he stated as to why they are back for the final site plan approval.
Well, that is a good question to start with. Why is he back for commentary on the final Cancer Pavilion site plan approval?
I can answer that question for you, unless you would like to answer it. But I'll answer this question. Your time is up, but this board placed that as a condition of approval on the final site plan. We only gave preliminary and we placed it as a condition, and that's why he is back today seeking final site plan approval after the parking garage was approved.
I would also like the board to
Your time-
clarify
your
the
time
amount
has
of time that we have tonight. How
3
much time
minutes.
does the public have tonight?
You have 3 minutes. Next up is Nick Broncati. Nick, are you there?
Hello. Yes, yes. Hello, esteemed members of the board.
Can you please state your name, spell your last name for the record, and put your address on the record? Thank you.
My name is Nick, N-I-C-K, Broncati, B-R-U-N-C-A-T-I. I am a concerned citizen from Red Bank, New Jersey.
Nick, do you swear or affirm to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Time begins now.
On the record, Mr. Broncati,
Pardon?
if you could just put your address on the record, please.
Red Bank, New Jersey. I don't feel comfortable giving out my whole address. That's fine.
Okay. How about a street then? It doesn't have to
Virginia
be a
Terrace.
home address. It could be a work address if you want.
Virginia Terrace.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so it seems that the board members have already decided on this parking garage thing and the Cancer Pavilion. I don't know if this is irrelevant for me to ask. I apologize. This is my first time doing this. But may I ask if you plan on letting any local artists decorate or paint a mural on the side of the new parking garage?
At that time, I cannot answer that question, and I don't think Mr. Liebling would be able to. Do you have an answer to that? If you'd like to answer, sir. If not, that's something I don't have information on right now.
Do I? And I just want to point out that this hearing is not about a parking garage.
Oh, you're correct. I'm sorry.
Okay,
Any
this
other
is
questions,
about
sir?
this is about the Cancer Pavilion. I just want to say, I apologize. Hold on. How many people do you plan on treating with this new Cancer Pavilion?
That's not relative to this application right now.
How is it not relevant? I want to know how many people.
1 minute warning.
Okay. You guys are on the planning board and you don't even know how many people you could be helping with this Cancer Pavilion, despite the fact that you made a bunch of kids go to school in a warehouse.
It's not that somebody doesn't have the information. It's not relevant to the proceeding at hand. You can ask these questions if you want to bring them up again in the public comment portion, but right now we're just dealing with this one specific application.
Okay. In that case, I think I'm just going to yield my time because he gave me the 1 minute warning.
And like I said, sir, there is another public comment portion for general comments at the end of the meeting.
Oh, I'll stick around. Don't worry.
Right.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you.
Next up is Michael Capobianca. Please state your name, spell your last name for the record, and put your address on the record.
Michael Capobianca, MICHAELCAPPABIANCA on Townsend Street, New Brunswick, New Jersey.
Swear or affirm tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, you're on.
My name is Michael Capobianca, and I am a pre-service teacher studying at Rutgers University. My primary issue, among many, with the construction of the Cancer Pavilion is knocking down the existing Lincoln Annex School and relocating these students to an unsafe warehouse.
Sir, this is not the appropriate time for this kind of comment. You can certainly state your concerns during the public comment portion of the meeting.
This is, in fact, the appropriate time because it has to do with you knocking down, it has to do with building the Cancer Pavilion. Moving
Mr.
on.
Can I just hold on one second? Dan, you can stop.
Moving on, I have a teacher's informed
Hold on one second.
perspective on the harm that this does to Lincoln Annex students.
Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir. Can you just hold
This
on
is
for one
my
second?
time. This is
don't
not
need
your
to-
time. I have
I just
observed in the New
asked-
Brunswick public schools, and I have been to Lincoln Annex as a
Excuse
part of
me.
this requirement.
Excuse me, sir. This is the
This
second
is my
time I'm
time.
asking you. Please hold on for a second. Dan, I asked you to stop his
I-
clock. I'm
as
not-
we all know, Lincoln Annex is a high-performing school as
Okay,
measured
this
by
is the
standards
third
and
time. One more
percentiles and
time,
numbers.
Dan, I'm going to ask you to stop this, to mute this
Why are you
gentleman.
stopping me? This is my time. And
Because
how
I
could-
want to make an explanation, and I'm asking you for your silence for a moment. I asked you 3 times now. Dan, I asked you to stop his clock.
I did. I did
Aravind,
when you
just
asked me.
want to-
I've stopped.
Dan, Aravind, I just want you to state one time, because there seems to be a lot of confusion as to what the public is commenting on at this point relative to this application. If
Thank
you
you.
could please give an explanation, maybe that will help everybody. They don't seem to be understanding.
Sure, Madam Chair, as you eloquently had indicated when this was called, this is item B on today's agenda. The agenda is on the website and is available for the public. It's also posted. It was published in the newspaper. Item B is Cancer Pavilion Redevelopment Associates LLC, 165 Somerset Street, Block 51, Lot 2.01, application PB 2020-11. It's a final major site plan application to construct an 11-story, 519,500 gross foot building, the Rutgers Cancer Institute of New Jersey Cancer Pavilion, to house outpatient and inpatient care, research facilities, administrative space, associated with RWJ Barnabas Health and Rutgers. No variances are requested. The site is located in the Healthcare Research Pavilion Redevelopment Plan area. Mr. Liebling was introduced as the attorney. No witnesses were presented, so there's no cross-examination. Members of the public are granted an opportunity to comment on this application. I believe they have 3 minutes to comment on this application. This is not about the school. This is not about the parking garage. Certainly they can try to tie that in if they wish, and they believe that it's relevant to the Cancer Pavilion in some way. But as time is limited, it might be most productive if you take a look at the agenda itself, and the only item that is being discussed today is the final site plan approval. Again, no witnesses were called.
Thank you. Dan, you can unmute Mr. Capobianca whatever time he has left if he'd like to proceed.
All right.
Thank you for that clarification. Continuing on, as far as the construction of this building, I am concerned about the construction of a private building using these taxpayer dollars, spending all this taxpayer money when we are pushing the public's interest with, the school that serves members of the public to literally the perimeter of the town. I am unsure why the board would choose, if their job is to serve the public, to bend to the knee of these corporations and serve private interests instead. I think that this does not represent the needs of the New Brunswick community. It does not serve its people well, and this is not what the board was put here to do. Yeah, that's all I have to say on that. Until we get to public comment, I yield my time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Who's
you.
next on the list?
Next up is Nicole Chevalier. Are you there, Nicole?
Yes, I'm here.
All right. Can you please state your name, spell your last name for the record, and your address on the record?
My name is Nicole Chevalier. My last name is Chevalier. And I'd like to clarify why exactly you need my exact street address.
Arvind, would you like to clarify?
Sure, you're being sworn to provide sworn testimony. So this is for identification purposes of who you are and who's testifying. It has the indicia
Okay.
All right. Now, Nicole, do you swear or affirm to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Always do.
On.
All right. So this entire time, y'all have spent a lot of time and energy dodging questions about y'all's conflicts of interest and what exactly you gain from serving on this board. We had a lovely chat yesterday wherein we learned that y'all are doing this for free. So coming back again, I just want to reiterate that I hope y'all are at least getting tossed a bribe from your buddies on high, because otherwise,
Madam Chair, this
you
would
gotta
be
love yourself a little.
public commentary, as it's clearly not.
Don't
about-
worry, I'm getting there. I'm getting there. Give me a moment. So, the people of New Brunswick did not appoint this board. You were chosen by a man with personal financial interest in this specific project. This is not
Can
a
you tie
democratic
this to this
process.
application, please?
Yes, give me a moment. I'm getting there. This is not even pretending it is going to be democratic. The people have already made it very clear what the purpose of this lot is, should be, and should remain to be. And the people have said, we do not want our children exported. Children are not things that are meant to be exported. You claim all of this is being done in the name of scientific inquiry and discovery and education. But if this really was done for a value of education, you'd be much less interested in finding ways to line your and other city leader pockets and turning the foundations of what you already have into results. You are turning away witnesses the citizens are trying to bring forward. You are turning away citizens. This is not a monopoly board. Like, this is not a game. And if y'all really decide to go ahead on this vote and vote yes, I hope, first off, for God's sake, and second off, for your own sake, that this third redundant cancer center really does something for y'all. Because the only explanation I have is that y'all hearts have gone well and truly metastatic.
Any other comments?
1 minute warning. Sorry, I was muted.
That's okay. Next
1
on the
minute
list,
warning.
Dan.
I don't know if she's done.
I'm good. I think that about sums it well.
Thank you.
Finish.
Next up is, all right, just checking if I'm unmuted. Next up is Elizabeth Ciccone. Are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. You're a little blurry, audibly, whatever, you know what I mean. If you could please state your name, spell your last name for the record, and put your address on the record.
Elizabeth Ciccone, Ciccone, 52 Welton Street, New Brunswick.
Thank you. Elizabeth, do you swear or affirm to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
You're on.
I just want to point out, as one of the board members stated, that there are significant planning problems with this plan, including the traffic problems related to the emergency entrances to the Robert Wood Johnson Hospital as a whole. In addition, I think there are significant issues that are associated with a fossil fuel power plant being installed in the parking deck, and that has not been fully vetted and that has not been fully permitted yet. I also think there's problems with the idea that there's supposed to be a helipad associated with this construction, and that hasn't been clarified or properly permitted yet. And while I appreciate the need for cancer care, I think that these applicants should be turned back to address some of the actual problems with their actual plan for the actual cancer center and its affiliated power plant and parking deck. I would also caution the board that, it is very serious conflict of interest on some of the parties involved with this, and that requires examination. And finally, I would suggest that cutting public comment further and further implies a certain attitude of already having decided and not caring about the public's opinion that you are supposed to represent. I will cede the rest of my time. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Nishad Dada. Are you there?
Yes, I am. Thanks, Dan.
Can you please state your name, spell your last name for the record, put your address on the record?
Yeah, that's Nishad. That's spelled November, India, Sierra, Hotel, Alpha, Delta. Last name is Dada, Delta, Alpha, Tango, Tango, Alpha. My street address is 50 Robinson Street, New Brunswick, New Jersey.
All right. Nishad, do you swear or affirm to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You're on.
Okay, first off, I just want to ask Mr. Liebling, maybe Mr. Eitel can help him out with this question about if this is for the final site plan approval, which is a different stage of approval than was previously afforded to the plan because it was contingent upon the parking garage portion of the plan being approved. Why, even if it wasn't the entire testimony from before, why weren't the previous witnesses brought up to stand? Just to give people a refresher.
Mr. Liebling, did you want me to answer that?
Yeah, I think it's really a question for board procedure.
Sure. In terms of procedure for final approval, the preliminary approval has certain conditions attached to it. And so between, and setting aside the condition of the approval, the site plan that was approved, unless there are changes that are made to the site plan, in which case they'd have to come in for an amended preliminary approval, they've received and have, as of right, their approval, their site plan approval, conditioned upon meeting whatever the conditions are for a final site plan. They're back before the board today indicating that they have met the condition of the preliminary approval that they received. And that one condition was that they have to get approval for this garage in order to come back into final approval. So there's no need to put on testimony about having received approval for the parking garage because we just approved it.
So what about members of the public who couldn't be or who might not have been available for the previous portion of the plan?
That was noticed and members of the public had an opportunity to be present. Unfortunately, we can't keep open the applications until all members of the public that may be interested now at the time.
I see, I understand. And I feel like, members of the public are beginning to grow a better understanding of the rules. I'm going to also speak again during the next portion for public comment, but I just want to thank the board for hearing me. And yeah, I look forward to my second public comment portion.
Thank you. Next up is Damika Deitch. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Please state your name, spell your last name for the record, and put your address on the record.
Yes, my name is Mika Deitch. That is D as in dog, E as in eggplant, I as in icicle, T as in tomcat, C as in car, H as in horse.
Okay.
I live on Jones Street.
Okay. Can you please do you swear or affirm tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
For sure.
All right, you're on.
All right, thank you so much. I just have been thinking about how the building of this cancer center and associated parking deck is unnecessary. I know that's kind of blunt, but when we look at the fact that there are 2 other cancer centers in New Jersey and about a dozen or so other parking decks in New Jersey, none of which are really ever full, and the New Brunswick Parking Association is in deep debt, I feel like making another private entity that collects money for themselves for parking and removes a actual public good of a school might not be in the best interests of a community, especially one that seems to, in some extent, align itself with the ideals of Rutgers University as a place of inclusivity, diversity, and what's the other thing? Oh, revolution. That's all.
Next up is Riley Denbo. Are you there? Riley?
Hello. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you please state your name, spell your last name for the record, put address on the record?
Absolutely. So my name's Riley Denbo. D as in dog, E as in enemy, N as in Nancy, B as in boy, O as in owl, and W as in water. And my address is Townsend Street.
Thank you. Can you please, did you swear affirm to the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yep.
You're on.
So today, I'm kind of confused. I'm not familiar with all of the rules and also language of these proceedings. But I just wanted to confirm that based on what I'm hearing, no decisions can be made on moral objection. It's to be focused entirely on the physical attributes of the building.
We are bound by the municipal land use law.
Okay, so from what I'm hearing, that means that you can't make decisions based on how it will impact traffic or how the buildings will impact the community. You can't make decisions based on the conflicts of interest presented by members of the board. So I'm kind of confused on what this decision is based off of.
It's based on the confines of the municipal land use law and variances within the city and our redevelopment plan.
So do those plans include shifting public owned buildings to private ones for the sake of profit?
I'm sorry, I don't think I understood your question.
Well, it just sounds like, excuse me.
Sure.
It sounds like you're given the power to make pretty monumental decisions for the public without being in the city, without really considering how these decisions will impact the public. So I'm just like really confused at what you look at besides the dollar amount that you get from it.
There is no dollar amount. It's a voluntary board.
Okay, well, you're not paid to be here, which I'm sure is very frustrating since we like to keep it pretty long. I do really think that there must be some sort of minutia detail that you can pick out here to stop the proceedings with this application, because it's been transparently evil and against public interest the entire time. So if you maybe could pick a detail from what people have presented to you for free after coming home from work to stop it, and maybe look inside your heart and do a little bit of good for the people of New Brunswick.
Time.
Do you have any? Okay, so your time is up, Miss. Next on the list.
Next up is Arceli Gonzalez. Are you there?
I'm here.
All right. Arceli, can you please state your name, spell your last name for the record, and put your address on the record?
Arceli Gonzalez, Gonzalez, 4501 North Oaks in North Brunswick.
All right, thank you. Arceli, do you swear or affirm to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
You're on.
Okay, I was also initially unclear about what we can even comment on in this section, so I will mostly wait till the end, but just going off of what Riley was just saying, it's actually kind of funny that you'll say that, you know, you don't have anything to do with the moral implications of this site and what's going on with the Lincoln Annex School, which I know you don't want me to mention right now, but You just said you don't actually, it's not a job, you just volunteer to do this. So similarly to how police officers don't have to have that job, but they do it even with the terrible moral implications, you know, you're still, that's still something that you're doing. You're still taking part in this and you don't have to. So you don't get to say that that's not something that you're taking part in. And as for the location, it's actually, I think they had mentioned before in the beginning that we're very lucky. New Brunswick is very lucky as a town to have a cancer pavilion within walking distance of the people there. And again, yeah, the kids of New Brunswick are very lucky to have a school that was there, walking distance. Most of them are children of undocumented people that don't drive, and this is going to be very detrimental to them. So yeah, you can say the location is really good. It was also very good for the kids, and it's not necessary to have this pavilion in this specific location. So you can go on to say how much good it will do for the community or whatever, but the location is not necessary. This specific location is not necessary. And I'll withhold the rest of my comments for the public section, general section.
Thank you.
Thanks. Next up is Ming Zhao. Are you there?
Ming Jiao is not there, but Ming Jia is there.
She says it every time.
Yeah, well, I keep trying. So, all right. Can you please state your name, spell your last name for the record, put your address on the record?
Yeah. All right. Jia. J as in John. I as in igloo. A as in atrocity. And my address is Nielsen. Some descriptors of
I need
like.
to swear you in. I need to swear you in.
Okay.
Do you swear affirm to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yeah. So like some of the words that previous commenters have used to describe the whole these proceedings have been transparently evil and unnecessary. And to that effect, just like regarding the whole construction of this cancer pavilion, right? I just think what's really illuminating is to consider this quote, as president, among other objectives, I would like to see the council have more an impact in the community, be more present. Zachora Ludwig told TA Pinto, New Brunswick. I hope I am able to work closely with the mayor's office to embrace this type of involvement in an effort to facilitate and expand communication between the governing body and the public. And I hope you all remember this spirit as the public continues to react to this atrocity in these meetings and outside of them. I yield the rest of my time to the esteemed and respected and greatly valued members of the planning board of the New Brunswick community.
All right.
Who's next on the list, Dan?
Next up is Charlie Cradaville. Charlie, are you there?
Yes, I am here.
All right. Can you please state your name, spell your last name for the record, and then put your address on the record?
Charlie Cradaville, KRATOVIL, 143 Saddam Street, New Brunswick.
Charlie, do you swear affirm to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
You're on.
Thank you. I just want to point out how far the planning board has fallen. Looking back, I know, Madam Chair, you've been on this board for 16 years, you say, so you surely remember the hearings you chaired at the Mine Street, with the Mine Street application. And, you know, at that hearing, you opened the floor for procedural objections from any member of the public. Right now, you're asked to evaluate whether you had this hearing last night, whether that was satisfactory to meet the conditions of the that the board had put on the application we're here on now. Did you open the floor for procedural objections in last night's hearing?
I'm not sure I follow your question about procedural objections. I think we went through it in the beginning.
Okay, it was a yes
Arab and
or no
Vaughn.
question. I'm going to have to reclaim my time. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be rude, but you've set up this situation where I only get 3 minutes and you can eat into my time by talking. So I'm just going to continue. That was a yes or no question. Did you do the procedural objection? Did you allow for procedural objections? And opening the floor, by that I just mean, asking for them. But I don't think that was done, for the record. Can you tell me when was the first time this board started having a time limit? Actually, let me make it a yes or no question. Isn't it true that this board never had a time limit until the hearing for the redevelopment plan on March 9th?
Madam Chair, I would ask that you advise Mr. Cradaville, so he can hear me as well. Cradaville, you might want to just focus on the application itself.
Whether the hearing last night was conducted with the planning board's normal principles for having a public hearing. Did you open the floor to anyone who wanted to speak last night? Or were there people who wanted to speak that didn't get the opportunity to speak? The yes or no question, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, if I may, the meeting was conducted in accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act and in accordance with the municipal land use.
That doesn't answer the question. Did you? Did anyone want to speak get the ability to speak? And I think you'll be hearing from someone later on tonight who will tell you that they tried to speak and were not allowed to speak. So that part of the resolution you just passed is false. Did you ask at the beginning of the hearing if any of the board members had conflicts of interest? I didn't hear it. If you did, yes or no? Did you ask that?
Who are you speaking to?
You.
And what was the question?
Did you ask the board members if they had conflicts of interest at the beginning of the hearing on the record as the board?
Madam Chair?
Yes,
Madam Chair, if I may?
Arab.
Yeah,
Yes, of course.
I conducted the inquiry of the board members prior to this listing, and it was actually at the first listing. We had the same board members except one new board member who I colloquied separately. But unless there was a change in their status, which there was not, the same conflicts that existed in the preliminary hearing of the application would have been existing for the final application.
Okay, well, I didn't hear it put on the record, but now that it's on the record, since you say you had a quality with the new member, does...
Time is up, Mr.
May I finish my question?
You can address...
May I finish my question?
You can, during the public comment portion. Who's next on the list?
You're not going to let me finish my question.
Next up...
If the board has the right to limit our comment time, then Mr. Cradaville should have the right to finish his question.
Dan, who's next on the list?
Next is Matthew Mione.
Objection. He should be able to finish his question.
Matthew Mione?
I'm here.
All right. Matthew Mione, can you please state your name, spell your last name for the record, and put your address on the record?
Matthew Mione, M as in Michael, E as in Edward, O as in Omega, N as in Nancy, I as in Indigo, Metuchen, New Jersey.
Matthew, do you swear or affirm to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
So help me God.
You're on.
All right. So I have a question for the chair. Did you allow for procedural objections in the meeting last night?
Aravind, we followed the rules we were supposed to.
Yeah, Madam Chair, the same answer that we provided to Mr. Cradaville, which is we complied with the law, which is the Public Meeting Act, New Jersey.
Was the meeting open to everyone who wanted to speak? And again, yes or no answers, just to save my time, because your answering eats into my time.
Madam Chair, this is for a time period for public comment on the applications pending for final approval. If Mr. Mione has any further questions, I would.
Okay, I got a question on what Charles Liebling. I understand. Again,
If
to my
not,
time. I understand.
perhaps we should go to the next speaker.
No, I have relevant questions. It's okay. For Charles Liebling on what he said tonight, I heard the whole thing he said. I was curious of why he didn't mention the displacement of 700 children. to a warehouse in order to build this not needed cancer pavilion. Is there any reason why you didn't mention the children, Charles?
Yeah, there's a lot. The reason is it's not relevant to the application.
Okay. One more question for you, Charles, about what you said tonight. I don't know if you're aware, but the same situation with the Lincoln Annex School has happened before with the A. Chester Redshaw School. And Mayor Cahill said when the school actually finally broke ground after 7 years of delay, that if anyone was looking to do a case study on how not to develop a new school, I can tell you that A. Chester Redshaw would be a prime example number one. So the exact plans of the Lincoln Annex School in this project.
1 minute warning.
The exact plan that the Mayor Cahill himself said prime example number one of what not to do to build a new school. So with that in mind, why did you not mention that tonight in your final words on it?
I didn't mention a lot of things, so I'm not going to really answer. It's just that's not any way to pose a question. I didn't speak about that, so you're not asking me about what I spoke about.
All reasonable efforts.
Do you have any other
Oh,
comments, sir?
I'm asking what you did not speak about.
Do you have any other comments?
How much time do I have left?
19 seconds.
For the chair, did you ask if any of the board members had conflict of interest at the beginning of the hearing?
I did not. Our attorney does that.
The attorney?
That's time.
Who's next on the list, man?
I will also want to put an objection on the record for yesterday not allowing everyone to speak during the public comment time who wanted to speak.
Your time is up, sir. Who's next on the list, Dan?
That's an objection for the record. That's not my public comment time. As a member of the public, I have a right to raise an objection.
Next up is Michael Peterson.
So the objection is not sustained?
Michael Peterson?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right. Can you please state your name, spell your last name for the record, put your address on the record?
Yeah, it's Michael Peterson. P as in Peter, E as in enriching, D as in dubious, E as in enriching, R as in rich, E as enriching, S as in super, E as enriching, and N as in nice. And 24 Moak Drive.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
You're on.
A lot of people are raising objections, and you guys are just not listening to them. Obviously, the community doesn't want this to happen, yet you're intent on going forward with this. Now, my question is, on the parameters of how you can vote against this, you make it very narrow. Why is that?
Madam Chair, just so I can be clear, this is Arvin Eitel, the board attorney. I would ask that the public be advised that this is their opportunity to make public comment about the pending application. There seems to be a lot of questions directed at board members and myself, but this is not the time for anything but comment or questions about that application, and those questions should be directed.
Oh, it is a question about the application.
We're called on the application, and as Mr. Liebling and I had already highlighted, there are no witnesses. So this is really an opportunity for the public.
Oh, it's a
Comment,
procedural
the board
question.
members can listen to their comments.
Well, I was asking a procedural question. The grounds of how you can vote no against this, because it seemed it was an extremely narrow way to vote against this atrocity.
Madam Chair, that's not a procedural question.
Okay.
Understood. Do you have any other comments, sir?
Oh, I have a lot of comments. This is the way that you're treating the public is absolutely insane. I mean, when was the last time that you stopped 5 minutes to 3 minutes of our public time to talk. It's ridiculous.
Do you have any comments relevant
Obviously,
to this
many
application?
people on this board have conflicts of interest that you are ignoring, but you just swipe that under the rug. No one here wants this to happen except for the people who are making money. This
Is
whole
on the list? Dan, was that time?
I have a minute left.
He has a minute. He has a minute.
I have a minute left of time.
Okay.
Thank you. People are going to be very upset by this. And I think you should really take that into consideration. To the one board member who voted against this project, thank you very much. You're the one board member who actually has a spine. Thank you. I yield my time.
Next up is Miguel Romero.
Yes.
Are you there? Yep. Please state your name, spell your last name for the record, put your address on the record, please.
It's Miguel Romero, Romero, on Somerset Street, New Brunswick.
Miguel, do you swear or affirm to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
On.
Okay, so my first question to the board is, what is the criteria for deciding who can be a witness when somebody's trying to make a case versus the approval of this application?
If you want to ask those type of questions, you can reserve them for the public comment portion at the end of the meeting. This is for questions regarding the application, this particular application.
Right, but I'm trying to clarify because it wasn't unclear. It was unclear to the public how somebody who's trying to object to the application can submit a witness and what the qualifications for that witness is.
Do you have any comment relative to this application?
Okay, so I guess that's not a relevant comment. My question or comment on the on another part of this application is, did you consider how the height of the parking deck is going to affect the surrounding houses as far as the amount of sunlight that they're going to be getting?
This is not, the parking deck application is closed. This is the second application, so that question is not relevant.
Okay, so this is with the whole Cancer Pavilion then?
This is with just the final site plan approval for the Cancer Pavilion, with whatever statement Mr. Liebling made tonight and the board professionals.
Okay, I see. So my question is, how is the height of this Cancer Pavilion going to affect the surrounding homes as far as them receiving sunlight?
That was part of the initial preliminary. That was part of the preliminary approval, was it not, Arvin?
If I recall, there was testimony regarding the height of that building, but Madam Chair,
1 minute.
No one here that can answer that question because there were no witnesses that were called by the applicant, as he's entitled to proceed as long as he meets the conditions of the preliminary approval. That condition of the preliminary approval was approval of the garage application, which happened this evening. So the questions that are focused towards the board or addressed towards the board are misplaced. This is an opportunity for the public to comment about that if they'd like to ask questions. I'm not sure who's going to answer those questions. We've been, I think, more than patient in trying to answer some of them, but.
I see. I guess I was a little confused because I thought that the planning board would know those kinds of answers to those kinds of questions. My other question or comment is the increase in traffic on Somerset Street. Would you be able to remind us how much more it's going to increase the traffic or the wait time at the intersection of Hardenberg and Somerset?
That's time, by the way.
That's not part of this application, and the expert witnesses, there were no witnesses that testified to that this evening.
Okay.
Next up is Bobby Rousseau. Are you there?
The person's name was Abby Rosu. She spelled it for you 3 times and you got it wrong.
Yeah, it's hard to hear sometimes. So Abby Rosu, are you there?
I'm here.
All right. Can you please state your name, spell your last name for the record, and put your address on the record?
Abby Rose Sue, Alpha Bravo Bravo Yankee, Romeo Oscar Sierra Uniform. The address is Conforti Avenue in West Orange.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
You're on.
I feel very strongly about this entire happening, even as someone who is not a resident of New Brunswick. It's just impossible to ignore the atrocity and the unforgivingness of the board about everything that is going on. It's a prospering city full of diversity, and it's a community that you're disrupting for the sake of a cancer pavilion that could easily be located elsewhere. All for the sake of money, which is just prioritized over well-performing students at the Lincoln Annex. And it's just inherently valuing monetary gain and gentrifying the neighborhood over the nourishment and advancement of longtime community members. And as community members yourself, I would think that you should feel strongly about this, but that just demonstrates that you just don't have the best interests of the people in your community at mind. And going along with everything that everyone has been saying earlier, it's disgusting that at a public hearing, which is voices are just being silenced in every effort, as Charlie Cradaville and many other people have been saying. The rules are just, yes, the rules are consistently changing. Like 3 minutes. I was at the hearing last night as well, and just the wavering of these rules that have been put in place is very much not a good look.
Do you have any other comment, Miss?
Minute.
I mean, all of that being said, amidst the pandemic, when the children have already been relocated to this warehouse, which is been deemed unfit on many levels, it's just sentencing people to very, very inadequate conditions. And again, just completely dismissive of your community and the people who inhabit it. And I bid my time.
Who's next on the list, Dan?
Next is Linda Stork. Linda, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Linda, can you please state your name, spell your last name, and put your address on the record?
Linda Stork, S-T-O-R-K, 12 Park Boulevard.
Linda, do you swear or affirm to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You're on.
Okay. So, first of all, I thought Mr. Petrolino made an excellent point about the ambulances. In my comments last night, I was focused on my own inconvenience in the traffic. As it stands now, never mind the extra 500 cars in an hour. But yeah, when you think about ambulances trying to get through, and especially right there, by the trauma center, yeah, it does become a public health and safety. I think it was mentioned that would be a reason that you could have denied it. And there's many other public health and safety aspects to this. There's the fact that a power plant is being built in the middle of a residential neighborhood. That's an environmental issue, and it's also an environmental justice issue. And in this day and age, to be tearing down the building that had solar panels on the roof and building one that's going to be powered with with fossil fuels. I mean, that's so backwards. That's crazy. Anyway, as far as the more public health and safety would be, if you consider the, public health and safety of the neighborhood can hardly be served by sending all the public school children out of the neighborhood to a questionably safe place when they had a perfectly safe place to be. That's just totally unnecessary, not to mention like the psychological and the academic harm. I mean, these are public health issues.
1 minute warning.
Okay, it's been proven, just the way they made they supersized the, parking deck, and now they supersized the school. That's bad for kids. It impedes their academic. It's been proven. It will detrimentally affect their academic progress. Oh, just what we need. That's totally against the public interest. I'm also curious. It said that there were some loose ends. The approvals from the Delaware and the DNR Canal and the Middlesex County approvals hadn't come in.
There are no loose ends for this part of the application.
Oh, what were those?
The only thing that we needed for this part of the application was the approval for the parking garage.
Madam Chair, if I could just clarify that one point.
Of course.
Time, by the way, but.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
The only condition of the preliminary approval to seeking final approval was obtaining approval of the parking garage. There were a number of outside agency approvals which sometimes take weeks or months to obtain. Those are always conditions of any approval, and those outside agency approvals must be in hand prior to the issuance of any building permit so they can actually start vertical construction.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. Your time is up. Who's next on the list, Sam?
Next is Ruth Tucker. Are you there?
Hi.
Hi. Ruth, can you please state your name, spell your last name for the record, put your address on the record.
Okay. It's Ruth, like from the Bible. Tucker. T as in tango. No. Wow, I just spelled my own last name wrong. U as in Uranus. C as in cat. K as in karate. E as in envelope. And R as in the racehorse. Oh, and I live at 19 Union Street in New Brunswick.
All right. Do you swear or affirm to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
You're on.
Okay. So sorry, I'm not super familiar with like the planning board and everything. What's like the scope of what you guys like can do here? Because I feel like there's been some discussion back and forth about like what your guys' role is. And I did Google it, but maybe you guys can give more clarity about like what you kind of like preside over in New Brunswick.
We'll be happy to provide that information to you in the public comment portion towards the end of the meeting. This is on the application only.
Okay, sorry. So this is about like the Cancer Pavilion specifically, not like we've moved on from the parking garage.
Right, this is the Cancer Pavilion as it relates to the final site plan based on Mr. Liebling's statement tonight.
Okay. Do you think it's kind of weird that in a city with a notorious lead problem in the water, they're investing millions of dollars in a cancer pavilion when lead in water is a thing that causes cancer?
I'm going to train servitude to play.
What was it?
Do you have any questions relevant to this application?
I thought it was relevant. So sorry, this is just about like the building of the Cancer Pavilion, not like just the building of it.
Designated the headquarters of the United States.
How much money do you guys think that like building a cancer pavilion will bring to the city of New Brunswick, like per year?
It's not relevant to this application.
How is it irrelevant?
You can ask in the public comment because that has nothing to do with this application.
1 minute warning.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought the benefit that it would bring to the city was relevant. I'm a little confused about what the parameters are. I mean, I'm assuming you guys think building a cancer pavilion is a good thing. So I thought you guys would want the opportunity to maybe say one of the good things that it could bring to the city. Well, I mean, now I'm just confused because I really thought that one was relevant. I mean, you kind of got me with the first question, but okay. How tall will the cancer pavilion be?
I didn't hear your question. I'm
There
sorry.
are no witnesses that can answer that question.
Oh, okay. We're back on the witnesses thing. I'm sorry. I'm not really familiar with the whole procedure for these meetings. So forgive me. Okay. Wow. Sorry, I'm a little off my roll here. Oh, it's time?
Yes.
Oh, rip.
Okay. Next up is Victor Vaughn. Victor, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. Please state your name, spell your last name, put your address on the record, please.
Victor. V like Victor. A like acre. U like unilateral. G like a garden gnome. H like a hat. N like Naples. I promise to be as honest as the planning board.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
As much as the planning board.
You're
all right. What's up, you sad bunch of freaks? So you can stick that
Madam
pen in
Chair,
your mouth. Don't
this is
interrupt
the-
me. Don't interrupt
the
me.
second
I said
time
don't interrupt me. Don't interrupt me.
This
It's my
individual-
time, not
If
yours.
you're going to have that attitude, I'm going to ask you once to remain cordial with everyone. That's your first warning.
I've muted him and I've requested for an unmute if he'd like to continue.
Okay. So shall we move to the next
No,
witness
he's
for now?
muted himself. He's having the opportunity to come back and finish his time if he wants.
Madam Chair.
So didn't all right. So am I going to be allowed to speak, or are people
Wanting
going to
to
just keep
continue,
interrupting me?
If he's going to be, if he's going to continue with the disruptive behavior, then he can be.
Did an attorney ask if there was a conflict of interest? Gus Fring?
That's been asked and answered several times tonight.
Okay, just making sure. Lots to talk about irrelevancy, but where is the pavilion going to be built?
Madam Chair, there are no witnesses that can answer that question.
So you don't know where this thing is going to be built. All right, cool. So, like, you don't even know what currently stands where the pavilion will be built.
In the crucial days that follow, the task of treating.
What?
Do you have any comment relevant to this application?
I'm sorry, how is my question not relevant to what we're currently talking about?
Because we're talking about the major site, we're only talking about one thing here
Right,
based on comment made by Mr. Liebling.
Right? So you don't know where it's going to be built?
Madam Chair, it might be appropriate to ask who he's asking that question to. There are no witnesses here.
So you're voting to have the pavilion built, but you don't know where it's going to be built?
All of those parameters were covered in the preliminary plan that was already given approval.
But you can't answer that, but you know.
There's no one here to give you that answer tonight, sir. Do you have anything
1 minute.
relevant to this application?
Yeah. All right. So what currently stands? You know, fine. No amount of donations or visiting the children's ward later. You know, after this is all long in the past, is going to fix this like it can be fixed right now. Liebling, you're the only one that like looks kind of like you have a soul, right? Try and do the right thing. I still can't believe you don't know who's gonna pay for this. You don't know where it's gonna be built. You don't know like how much money it's gonna bring into the city. Like, what do any of you know? What do you do all day?
Alexander underwent a crash course.
Nothing?
Do you have any other comments?
No smart alecky comeback, Suzanne?
Excuse me?
I said no smart alecky comeback? That's all you got? Asking me if I'm
That's
done?
the third time. Dan, can you please mute him?
Yeah, he's muted. Next
Okay,
up is, if I wrote this down correctly, hopefully I did, Olivia Wishmeyer.
Yep, that's me.
All right. Olivia, can you please state your name, spell your last name, and put your address on the record?
Olivia Wishmeyer, W as walrus, I as in ignorant, S as in summer, C as in cat, H as in hat, M as in magic, E as in energy, Y as in yodel, E as in eat, R as in ridiculous, and I live on Adams.
Olivia, do you swear affirm to the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yep.
You're on.
I just wanted to note first before I speak my comment that I was not permitted to speak last night in the question section, making the resolution y'all tonight pass. False if you're saying that you're interested in the public's ability to comment, which obviously y'all already know and have been reminded of time and time again. And I understand that for all of you, this is a job. And it is your security and your livelihood, and you have stories, and you've come here and you come tonight and you know all of each other. But I also know that you all probably have had and experienced people with cancer in your lives, losing people to cancer. And along with those things, I'm sure you have children, and children who go to schools like the school that will be replaced and removed and kicked out for this Cancer Institute. And I know that all of y'all would be stepping up to fight for this if it were your kids, but because it's Black and brown children, you're not. And I don't think that any amount of, building a cancer institute is going to hide the fact that this, quote, healing is an illusion. The Cancer Institute that you are building defeats the point if you build a brother fossil fuel plant right next door. You're putting fossil fuel energy into literally the sky of a city where people live, where people breathe, where children are walking, and you're not protecting them. At what cost? Your children are going to grow up to be the peers of these children, and they are going to have to live in the world that you are building right now and that you are putting into the garbage can for I don't know what. Obviously, you're not making money off of this position, but clearly you are gaining something else, because I wouldn't want to be here if I were y'all. So take the harassment of your silencing of us, exhausting for us. And I can only imagine how exhausting it must be for you to constantly have to silence the moral code that is in you. The moral code that I'm sure exists within you in some capacity at some point that somehow has dissolved over time. You pretend that you don't have the power to do something about the stopping of the building with this Cancer Institute. You say, oh, we don't have the power. We're just the board. We're just the board. Boards exist for a reason. You are on a board for a reason. You have the power to stop things. You choose not to. So don't get it twisted that you are not choosing oppression, that you are not choosing colonization, that you are not choosing racism, that you are not choosing gentrification, because those are the choices that you are making, and you're backing them up with saying things like, oh, this isn't related. Everything is related. Everything is related. Every carbon molecule you burn into the sky is going to come down and kill all of the plants.
That's time.
And kill all of the people.
Time's up. That was the last person on the list, Dan?
Yes.
Can I add my name to the list to speak?
No, you cannot. The list was closed before. I'm going to ask the board for a motion to close the public portion.
It's already closed. So if you're for the motion, it has to be closed. Someone who wants to speak should be able to speak.
Pathology.
Motion to close Yulitsa Checo.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Hamburger, second.
There's a member of the public who wishes to speak. The public section has not yet been closed and is being closed as they're requesting to speak. That's a clear violation of their rights. All this is going to...
All right. I've muted everyone and I will be unmuting the board now.
I'm back, Dan.
You're muted, Dan. Of course, that'd be me. That'd be muted. All right. Yalitza Checo, I'm going to to check to see everyone's here. Yalitza Checo.
Here.
Matthew Ferguson.
Here.
Suzanne Sikora Ludwig.
Here.
Dan Berger.
Here.
Diana Lopez.
Here.
Bob Kotka.
Here.
John Petrolino.
Here.
Okay. We're all here.
Okay, thank you. Now we had a first and a second. Can we proceed with the roll call? For a vote?
Okay.
Is everyone getting that feedback I'm getting? I can barely hear you folks.
I'm trying to see.
Again, and go from there, please.
Okay. So, off the top of my head, I believe it was Yalitza who motioned and Ryan who seconded. They can confirm that if that's true.
Yes, that's true.
That is correct.
Okay.
Dan,
Yeah.
I want to make sure also that Mr. Liebling is not muted.
He is unmuted. Well, I sent him a thing to unmute himself if he'd like. Okay. Madam Chair?
Can we do the vote, please?
And the vote is on the, for clarity's sake, this vote is on.
The motion to close the public
Gotcha.
portion.
Okay. Yalitza Checo?
Yes.
Matthew Ferguson?
Yes.
Suzanne Sikora Ludwig?
Yes.
Ryan Berger?
Yes.
Diana Lopez?
Yes.
Bob Cardica? Bob, are you there? I don't know if I muted him. I don't think so. Let's see. Bob, are you there? Bob?
Is he on by phone, Dan?
Yeah, Bob, it's star 6 to unmute yourself. Just Bob, do we move forward without him?
Can you hear me, Dan?
Yo, is that you, Bob?
Yeah, I was muted.
Okay.
What are you asking? What are you voting on at this time?
The vote is on the closure of the public portion.
Okay, I vote yes.
Okay. Dr. Petrolino?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. The public portion is now closed, and do we have any?
Madam Chair, you kind of broke out there, what you said. Madam Chair?
Baba Booey.
Madam Chair, are you there?
Baba Booey. Baba Booey.
Madam Chair?
I think she might be call-in user 14. I think you accidentally muted her. Call-in user 14.
Calling user 14 is unmuted. Suzanne? Madam Chair, are you there? Let's try again. Madam Chair, are you present?
Dan?
Yes.
Now I couldn't unmute myself. It wouldn't allow me.
All right.
Okay. So now you can hear me. Now I wanted to know if there are any conditions that need to be read by Katie on the record before
Yes.
we proceed with the
Yes,
vote.
there are. Ms. Pinello, I've unmuted you. You can read the conditions into the record.
Yes, good evening. Should the board act favorably on this application, we recommend the following conditions of approval. Compliance with the terms of the DNR report dated January 11th, 2021, and the state engineering report dated September 9th, 2020 for this project. Submission of any necessary easements and/or cross-access agreements for review and approval by the board attorney and the city engineer prior to filing of same. Payment of a site performance bond in an amount reviewed and approved by the city engineer. Submission of a site inspection escrow deposit for engineering inspection fees in an amount calculated pursuant to Title 1624-160. Payment of all water and sewer connection fees pursuant to Titles 1304 and 1308 if required. Issuance of a road opening permit from the city engineer if required. The applicant shall schedule a pre-construction meeting with the city engineering department. Compliance with the terms of the Bignell Planning Report dated December 29, 2020 for the project. Payment of a redeveloper fee to the city of New Brunswick if required. Planning review escrow funded for all anticipated post-approval reviews. Payment of any other fees due to the city of New Brunswick related to the development or use of this project. Payment of all outstanding taxes and water sewer fees. Middlesex County Planning Board approval or waiver. DNR Canal Commission approval or waiver. Freehold Soil Conservation District approval or waiver. Any other agency approval or waiver as required. Submission of engineering or architectural plans to comply with any changes required by the planning or engineering memos or plan amendments offered at the hearing, if any. Compliance with the city's water service system ordinance, which is chapter 1304. We carry over the condition that is prior to the issuance of any construction permits, the applicant shall meet with city representatives, including board professionals, the city engineer, and the police department to undertake a review of site safety issues, if any. All utilities and other site improvements to be maintained by the applicant at their sole expense. All on-site utilities to be constructed underground. All temporary encroachments into the public right-of-way shall require city council approval. All construction staging shall be done on site unless an encroachment allowing into the public right-of-way is approved by city council. Streets shall be kept clean of sediment and debris. The applicant shall cause the streets to be cleaned if directed to do so by the Director of Public Works. Tracking pads shall be installed at all construction exits. Replacement of damaged streets, curbs, and sidewalks per the direction of the city engineer. And the applicant is seeking final site plan approval. And that's all I've got.
Thank you, Katie. Is there a motion from the board?
Where is it? Okay. All right. All right. Yeah. I just wanted to make sure.
I'll entertain a motion from the board.
I'll make a motion to approve with amendments.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
And who's that seconded?
Yulitsa Checo.
Thank you, Yulitsa. Okay. Yulitsa Checo,
Yes.
Matt Ferguson. Wait, let me make sure. Okay, I think I hit him on the mute by accident before. Matt, you can unmute yourself.
There we go. Yes.
Suzanne Sikora Ludwig.
Yes.
Brian Berger.
Yes.
Diana Lopez.
Yes.
Bob Kartika. Let's make sure that Bob is still here with us. Bob, are you muted again? I apologize if you are. Bob Kartika, are you there? *6 if you're on the phone, Bob. Bob?
Do you still see him there, Dan?
I mean, he's on the phone, so I'm not entirely sure. I thought he was calling user number 17 or number 14, and I don't see either right now. I see caller user 14. I don't think that's him. Maybe it's 17. I don't see 17. Maybe he's called back in. Bob, are you there? Just trying to see if.
I'm here.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
You know, I've been muted for several minutes. I was trying to communicate, ask whether you were entertaining any statements or discussion prior to vote, and I see you proceeded with the vote because you couldn't hear me.
We apologize for that.
Bob, you can still, before you place your vote, you're more than welcome to make a comment.
Where are you in the voting?
We were at your name.
We're at you and then Mr. Petrolina.
Okay, so is it okay if I qualify my vote?
Of course.
Okay. I just wanted to, some of you members are aware that I didn't support the proposed development of at this site because it would result in the relocation of the students from the Lincoln Annex School. And not that I have any issue with the Cancer Pavilion, I just don't feel that the school should have been relocated. The students shouldn't be relocated, especially after the city had made some pretty costly improvements to the school. But despite my objection, the board approved this at the March 2020 meeting by a majority vote, and we learned last night that the Board of Education has sold or approved the sale, I'm not sure which, of the lot which supports the Lincoln Annex School. So, you know, bottom line, there's no way to go back. That was then, this is now. And despite what I may think about this, I have to accept, once again, the guidance of our attorney for conformance with the municipal land use law, and also taking into consideration that there are no variances requested as part of this application. So as a result of that, my vote for the final site approval is a yes.
All right.
Thank you, Bob.
John Petrolino. Oh, sorry. Apparently John's muted. I must have missed him, and I'm sorry, John. I sent you a request to unmute yourself, John. You can hear me. There.
Yep, I've got it. Thank you for sending that, Dan.
I apologize.
I will simply echo Bob's sentiment. I think that was well stated, Bob, and for the same reason, I am voting yes.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. That completes the application. Can you hear me, Dan?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so that the application is approved, Mr. Liebling.
Yes.
He's muted.
Oh, wait, he's muted? Chuck, I sent you a thing so you can unmute yourself.
Thank you, Dan. The applicant extends its thanks and appreciation to the board. Thanks very much.
Thanks, sir. Okay, now we'll continue with our business for the evening. I don't believe there are any items for discussion by the council, and I'm not quite sure where we stand with minutes. Do we have any to approve?
No, there are no minutes to approve.
Okay, we have no minutes to approve, and so now we will begin the general public comment portion of the meeting.
Okay. All right. I want to just casually put this over and get my little script again. All right. At this time, we are preparing to open, and just so I'm clear, I'm unmuted, right? Yes. Okay, good. At this time, we're preparing to open the meeting to general public comment for 3 minutes per person in order to assure that the planning board can hear from the interested public and that the public can hear public comments. I'll organize speakers in order by last name. In a moment, I will unmute the public call-in. At that time, I will ask that those with the last name starting with the letter A to provide me your last name, first name, and home address. I will confirm the information is correct and then move on to the next person alphabetically from A to Z. Upon completion of asking for all last names from A to Z, I'll ask one more time for those who were missed and would like to be placed on the initial list of speakers. And then we will move through the list of speakers, calling the persons by name and permitting them 3 minutes to speak. Once we complete the list, we will then close the public comment portion. Please be mindful that your voice is being telephonically transmitted. Speak slowly and clearly for the benefit of all. I'll ask that you please remain silent when I initially allow folks to unmute themselves. And so that everyone can hear when we're beginning the registration process. And let's see. And now everyone has the ability to unmute themselves. And I will ask that any member of the public who would like to make general public comment, the last name starting with the letter A, to please announce themselves and I will put them on the list. A. B.
Arthur Bucco.
Jean-Luc Bourget, 116 Lewis Street.
Nick Brancotti, Red Bank, New Jersey.
I got Arthur, Jean-Luc, and Nick. Anyone else for B? C?
Tony, 52 Walton Street, Brunswick.
Okay.
Michael Capobianca.
Capobianca, all right. D?
Nishad Dada, Delta Alpha, Tango Tango Alpha.
Nishad Dada. E?
Riley Denbo for D. Riley Denbo.
Riley Denbo. Okay. E? F? G?
Ivy Gergich.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
Ivy Gergich.
Gergich. H?
Wait, Gonzalez.
Oh. Okay. Arceli Gonzalez?
Yes.
All right. I. J.
Jarrell Figueroa.
Ming Jiao.
Hello?
So. Yes.
Hello?
Yes.
Did you get that? Hello?
Yes, I mean, I did not. What's your name?
Jarrell Figueroa.
Jorel Figueroa?
Yes.
Okay.
Do I need to give you guys my address right now, or do I have to wait?
Arvin, can they do it when
yes.
when they're sworn in?
No, this is
public. I just joined in the call, so I'm a little confused as to what's going on right now.
And this is public comment, not sworn testimony.
Okay, so they would have to put it in there.
Yeah, just tell their last name, put it on the record when they're called.
Okay.
All right, so afterwards. Okay, cool. Sorry, I just joined on the call. This is my first time doing one of these calls. I'm very confused as to what's going on with this. I just heard people talking on their name. I heard people say their addresses. So I'm sorry if I'm wasting time. I'll let you do your thing.
We're up to K.
Kelly Cradaville.
All right. L. M.
Yes, Matthew Meoni, M-E-O-N-I.
Levinson. Apologies for that. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Levinson?
Levinson?
Yes, Jack Levinson. That is Levinson.
All right, we're up to N. O. P. Q. R.
Sorry, Peterson.
Peterson. R. S. T.
Miguel Romero for R. Miguel Romero for R.
All right, Arlie Rubens and so.
Linda Stork for S.
All right, Linda Stork.
That was Miguel Romero for R.
I got you. And Arlie Rubens. All right, T. U. V. W.
Victor Vaughn.
Victor Vaughn. W. X. Y. Z. Is there anyone who I didn't get on this list who would like to be on this list? Or if you think you didn't make it on the list? Anyone at all? Seeing none, this list is now closed.
Okay, Dan, I would just like to state for the record that to all parties, please adhere to a manner of mutual respect, refrain from personal attacks and foul language to facilitate decorum throughout the course of the meeting. You will receive 2 warnings. If after your second warning, if it happens again the third time, you will be placed on mute.
All right.
Sorry to interrupt, but can you please mute if you're not speaking because there's a lot of background noise? Can you please?
Yes, please. Anyone, if they could self-mute if they're not speaking, it's to the benefit of everyone else. Thank you. Madam Chair, the first speaker is Nick Brancati.
Hi, yes, this is Nick Brancati. I'm a concerned citizen from Red Bank, New Jersey. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good. This goes out to all you spine with books.
Arvin, what does he have to do anything? State name again.
To give his name and address, comment, so he can.
Okay, hold on. I'm gonna try to figure out who's causing all the background noise and mute them. There. Oh, it was Nick. It was Nick. It was Nick. Madam Chair, could I recommend that Nick not be allowed to speak because the disruption that he was just trying to cause, or is that above what we're allowed to do here?
Well, Madam Chair, if I may.
We'll consider that his first warning.
Okay.
You can unmute him. And
Then I will
see
unmute him. I have unmuted him. I've submitted permission for him to unmute himself.
And
Okay.
I'm sorry, the person that was speaking, I've forgotten his last name.
It was Nick Brancati.
Okay.
Oh, I yield my time. Thank you.
All right. Next is Jean-Luc Bourget.
Yes, hello, esteemed members of the planning board. Am I heard right now?
Yes, you are.
All right, thank you. Just to clarify for the rest of the fellow public, this is the general comment portion where we are unbound by topic and can say our mind's desire for what we think about the current projects.
Yes, in a respectful manner and with no personal attacks, but yes.
Absolutely, of course. I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but it's like week in, week out here with what the public does have to say about this project. I think it's kind of funny. The introductory portion of this meeting, the fact that the rules and minutes and whatnot about what the planning board can or cannot do, or the bases of how they can or cannot vote were laid out. It would have been very productive if the planning board had, I don't know, laid these out earlier at a much earlier meeting, maybe months ago. I mean this respectfully, because, well, as you, the respected members of the board, must have obviously seen, there is massive public outcry and outrage about this project, and it probably would have made these meetings much easier if if the limitations of the planning board were made easy, were outlined sooner to the general public. I don't know where to start with my next minute other than things that you have probably already heard me say, as well as things that the rest of the general public has already said. This plan is just going to make New Brunswick a far worse town to live in for all residents. And as you outlined tonight, apparently the voices and concerns that we have brought up are apparently irrelevant to the purposes of the planning board. And once again, I do think it's funny that the exact outlines of the planning board were only brought up tonight in the face of such massive public outcry.
That's time.
Once again, I do mean this all respectfully. Thank you, esteemed members of the board.
Thank you, sir. Who's next, Dan?
Next up is Arthur Bucco.
Hello, everyone. I guess I want my comment to be that I think we need to consider building a city, building a society that doesn't destroy schools for children in order to build pointless parking garages that no one is going to use, in order to build like the third cancer treatment facility in this city. This is just completely mind-numbing how useless this entire process is. We do not have to displace these children. We do not have to put them in a spot where they might get cancer later down in their lives because they're exposed to chemicals at the warehouse and the warehouse grounds. We do not have to continuously choose to destroy this community and uproot everything that makes New Brunswick great. And I think we need to, people need to come together. I think we need to organize around this and get people marching in the streets. I think we need to be agitating our neighbors and letting them know what is going on, how these children are the victims of a cruel campaign by the local wealthy elite, and that this Board of Education fundamentally does not care about the health and well-being of the children of New Brunswick. So I'd like to end with that. I would say thank you, but there's nothing to thank you for. Good night.
Next
Dan,
up
who's next?
is, yes. Let me just get my timer ready. Next up is Michael Capobianca.
All right. Hello, my name is Michael Capobianca, and I am a pre-service teacher studying at Rutgers University. My primary issue with the Cancer Pavilion is not the building of this redundant, expensive Cancer Pavilion, because it's going to be built no matter what. My issue is with knocking down the existing Lincoln Annex School and relocating these students to an unsafe warehouse. I have an informed teacher's perspective on the harm that this does to the Lincoln Annex students, and I hope to be able to share that with you tonight. Hope the board members would all agree that your role is to serve the members of the New Brunswick community, and the future of our community is our children. So what better way to serve the community than by serving the children? I have observed in the New Brunswick public schools in order to complete my required observation hours for teacher certification, and I've actually been to the Lincoln Annex schools and seen how the students, teachers, and staff interact. Lincoln Annex is a high-performing school measured by standards and percentiles and numbers, as we all know. There's also a vibrant community that exists at Lincoln Annex, and this cannot be measured, quantified, or replaced. By moving the students of Lincoln Annex to an unfamiliar, unsafe location that lies outside of the neighborhood, you disrupt this vibrant community, and you thus disrupt students' academic, social, and emotional development. You are harming these children, and it is very clearly documented that students learn best when they are in a comfortable, familiar environment. As you also know, Lincoln Annex is home to traditionally underserved populations, primarily Black and brown children. Across New Jersey, many Black and brown children do not have a place like Lincoln Annex that is safe, comfortable, and supportive of their learning, where they can be challenged to reach their highest learning potential and be supported socially and emotionally. By relocating these students and tearing down their school, you tear this opportunity away from them. Board members, I ask you to consider your role in this crime, and it is a crime. And know that if you fail to intervene, you are not only complicit, but directly responsible for the harm done to the students of Lincoln Annex. You've already voted yes on this proposal. Maybe you never were even able to do anything about it in your role as planning board, because we've talked a lot about your role as planning board today. If you can't do anything as members of the planning board, then join us as members of the New Brunswick community and do something about it. You are ruining the lives of these children for God knows what. Really, God knows what. I don't know why you're bending the knee to these corporations. Make this right. I yield my time.
Next up is Elizabeth Saccone. Are you there? Elizabeth, are you there?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you
Yeah.
now.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you.
You're on.
I just want to say that I'm very concerned with how this board has been managed by Ms. Cora Ludwig in terms of holding us late at night like hostages, in terms of cutting the time slots shorter and shorter for public comment, in terms of not being cautious to make sure that everybody's voice has been heard. There are multiple ways where this board is manipulated by her and to some extent by the board's own counsel, because constantly reminding the how to do better, but never reminding the citizens how to do better, even though theoretically he should be representing the citizens by representing the city. The way that they've given instructions is very pointed and picayune and based on minutia. And in doing so, they railroaded the other members of the board and forced them to vote a certain type of way, whether they really believe it or not. It's very sad, really. And the conflict of interest is very disturbing. And I really feel ashamed for the city of New Brunswick. It saddens me that all of the things that the people want to keep, you're giving away. Is there anything that's even remotely worth saying to people? Does anything have any meaning at all? It's frightening the way you've behaved. I hope you feel ashamed. Thank you.
Is next on the list, Dan?
Next up is Nishad Dada.
I'm going to start by thanking Elizabeth Ciccone, Juan Gonzalez, Charlie Cradaville, Danielle Moore, Araceli Gonzalez, Linda Stork, Michael Capobianca, Herb Tarbus, John Petrolino, and Bob Picardica for cross-examining and expressing their support for the fight to save the school, despite finally voting against public opinion. And everyone else has been involved in the fight. Organizations like the 5th and 6th Ward Neighborhood Organization, Defend Almost Annex, New Labor, Rutgers AAUP, Capobianca, New Brunswick, Bay Rutgers, all of my comrades in the Central Jersey Socialists and the Central Jersey Mutual Aid Coalition for doing the truly revolutionary work for creating the framework for a more just and equitable future. I also want to thank DevCo / the applicant for acting in such an egregiously and morally bankrupt manner, because without them, local organizations and activists would not have a reason to create such a strong coalition. Out of this fight is born a new base of popular opposition, not only to all of the unethical practices of DevCo, but of all developers who operate in the city, corporate and privately owned. An entity like DevCo should be beholden to the will of the people and act as a public utility, not as a private corporation that only exists to grift the taxpayers of New Brunswick and Middlesex County, as well as Newark, Atlantic City, and whatever the next city this octopus decided to stick the next of its 8 tentacles into. I want to be very clear here. The applicant has framed all of the popular opposition to this project as opposition to cancer centers in abstraction and in general. This is a false dichotomy. We have an opposition to these entities taking on the task. We have an opposition to the underhanded way in which all of these proceedings have been conducted, and we have an opposition to offering up the most vulnerable members of this community, our children, as sacrifices or collateral damage for the growth of the wealth of this city's 1%. Any argument that hinges on logical fallacies, that is to say, invalid arguments, should not even be considered by a planning board whose duty should be to protect and support the will of the constituents of the city it exists in. These are public hearings, not public mutings, and it will not stand up to even the most basic level of scrutiny that it will receive further down the road. The fight is not over. This is just the beginning, and I want all of us to prepare for the next cities. We will not stand for this kind of robber baronism, and we will not stand for this neo-colonialist, racist aggression against the wonderful people of the finest city in the Union, New Brunswick, New Jersey. You might not care about this place or love this place, but we do, and you will never be able to steal from us our love for the city. And finally, I want to apologize to Mr. Dominguez. You have probably the worst job in this city's bureaucratic structure. Thank you. I yield my time.
All right, next up is Riley Denbo. Are you there? Riley?
Hi, yes, I'm here.
All right, you're on.
Okay. Well, as I stated before, I work in a daycare with the children who will eventually one day grow up to be put in that warehouse. It's heartbreaking to see that despite all of the objections that people have raised, all of the concerns that they've had, the board has decided that it's beyond their power to do the morally right thing in whatever small way they can. I feel like concerns were expressed and ignored, even by the one member of the board who gave some flaccid attempt at debating it. The whole conduction of these meetings has been incredibly shady, with little to no concern of the feelings of the public or their ability to understand even how this is to be conducted. At every opportunity, the people here have been dismissive. They've tried to rush it along and continue to shorten and limit people's ability to speak to prevent a vote from being filibustered, which is shameful behavior. And really what I'd like to know is how many people will it take in order to get something like this stopped? Like, how many people do you need to hear from if this isn't enough? Because they'll gather, and if there's no way for them to be heard, they'll figure out a way to be heard.
Do you have any other comment, Miss?
You have a minute left?
You have 1 minute left.
A
Do you
minute,
have any
you
other
say?
comments? Yes. Not now, but you did. Do you have anything else you'd like to say? If not, we'll move on to the next person.
Yes.
Are you still there? Jan, we can move on to the next person, please.
All right, sure. The next person is Jorel Figueroa. Are you there? Jorel Figueroa?
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Hi, my name's Gerald Figueroa. I moved to New Brunswick back in 2012 as a college student here. As a Latino American, who grew up in a white neighborhood, an upper-class white neighborhood, I was denied most of my heritage by the location I had lived in. When I moved to New Brunswick, I was able to really thoroughly connect with a large chunk of my heritage and my racial heritage that I was denied in my hometown. I fell in love with this local community, the culture, the people, the food, all of it. And over the 4 years that I had been here as a student, I had formed a deep connection to this town, so much so that I moved back from LA to New Brunswick for this community that I had fallen in love with. And to see that the local cities, the city's local government, the officials here would brush over the concerns of the people who live here, the minorities and the other maligned groups within the city who have genuine concerns about the health and well-being and safety of their children and their fellow citizens of this town, and to have them brushed over completely. To see the blatant, just shady and abusive use of this city's authority, of the government's positions of authority, and just to ignore the citizenry, the people who you are meant here to serve. And for what? So you guys can put up another useless building, another useless, unwanted building. And I am saying this as a survivor of cancer, as a person with a family who have survived cancer and has had family members die of cancer in the past. And I'm saying this cancer pavilion that you are building here is worthless.
1 minute.
It is not what the people of this town want. And to throw children, literal children, into a warehouse? Are you kidding me? This is a cruel, cruel joke. And I, for one, am frankly disturbed and horrified to see what this town is doing to its citizens. I yield my time.
Next on the list, Dan.
Sorry, I didn't know I was muted. Next up is Abby Burgess.
Can someone let me know why I had to find out about this meeting through a Facebook group chat? Why wasn't I contacted directly by the township?
Dan, is the next person on the list? I didn't get a name.
Oh, the first one to speak is Abby Gurgich. I think she's speaking now.
I am speaking right now. Please don't interrupt me.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry.
You're telling me that I had to find out about this meeting through a Facebook group chat? This is a community of mostly Hispanic people. Why did I have to translate this for most of my friends? I literally just had to deal with the loss of my son. Tell me, feel free to unmute yourself. Have you ever had to hold somebody's hand as they died? Or did you have the luxury to do that before COVID? I'm waiting. Have you? I will take that silence as a no. Why are you sentencing other families to have to deal with the trauma and the loss the way I have? Why did I have to find out through a Facebook group chat that my youngest child is not going to end up having a school but a warehouse? How on earth am I going to have to deal with all my children's health issues when they're not even going to be protected by the decency of walls because you decided to bulldoze their school to create what? Power plants? There are more efficient ways to use my tax dollars. Please tell me, why are you doing this? I don't even understand. Nah, and I know none of you have the courage to unmute yourself. Please tell me if you ever look into your child's eyes as they die. But hey, maybe you have the luxury of living in a township where they're not trying to build this. I am so sorry to all of the future families that you have to sentence to this up. What do you have to say for yourselves? What am I supposed to do? My daughter is supposed to go to school in a warehouse. Please.
Time.
Time. Next person on the list, Ken?
Next person is Arceli Gonzalez.
Madam Chair, before the next speaker, somebody do something about the audio problem. I'm really having trouble hearing.
Yes, please. Yeah, I am too, actually. Can someone, people please mute their phone if they're not speaking? Thank you. Who's next on the list?
And it's coming from that last speaker.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So the next speaker is Arceli Gonzalez.
Can you all hear me?
Yes. You're on.
Okay, that was hard to hear. That was hard to listen to. But that's the pain that's in this community right now. So, obviously we all know that this is bad, this is wrong, what's going on here. So I struggled for a while to understand why, after so much opposition and everything that's being said, this board was not moved by it at all. And then we learned that you do this voluntarily, you don't get paid. And it kind of set in a little bit. I kind of started to understand that you might not understand the extent of the evil that you do here. And I think a lot of it has to do with this dangerous dynamic that we have in this city, in this county, in the state, even in this country, where we have this powerful political machine, the Democratic Party. Of course, Mayor Cahill is from the Democratic Party. He appointed every single person on this on this board. And yeah, we have this party, this political machine that benefits from posing as opposition to Republicans, despite usually being just as bad. And because of this, they get to operate with zero accountability, and they do this kind of thing. And it's just a very, very dangerous dynamic. And we see it at every level of government. And I want to urge the community to step away from this mentality of this affinity with the Democratic Party and really just reject any politician, regardless of political affiliation, that does not serve your interests, that serves money interests, and that doesn't believe in your humanity and your dignity, doesn't even believe that this is your land. And a wonderful person once said that this land belongs to the people who work it. It doesn't belong to Depco. It doesn't belong to Robert Wood. It doesn't belong to anybody in this board or Mayor Cahill. It belongs to the community. It belongs to you. So I urge you to mobilize and organize and do everything you can to oppose this powerful political machine, because otherwise we're just going to see this over and over and over for entire lifetimes. And we've seen it for a really long time before us. And it's just going to keep being this way. So I want everyone to see just how big and powerful they are, that they can just, the only pushback they see is directly from the community, and they can't even handle it. They do everything in their power to silence it. There's really no other way to continue without doing our very best to understand this dangerous dynamic from this political machine that every single person involved in has their hands in this corruption, and the corruption starts at the bottom and it runs all the way to the top. So I ask everyone to pay attention to what's happening here, and then work. And someone had said before too, this is actually could be a blessing. It brought a lot of us together, and we can continue this work regardless of what happens.
That's time. That's time. Yeah.
Okay. Good night, everyone.
Next up is Ming Zhao.
I'm taking some time to gather myself. I had a few different ideas for kind of what I wanted to say, but after community members keep having to rip their hearts out, and they do it because they believe so deeply that it's going to have some kind of an impact. And I thank God that at least I enter these meetings knowing the dynamic of power that we're dealing with. I can't imagine what it feels like to be a community member who actually believes in this, and to have to go on to try to fight just to have this, to see, to come to the realization that you and your children's lives are seen entirely as expendable by the state and the rich people who occupy those positions of power. I'm just thankful that, in any case, I think a lot about about the different events that make up New Brunswick that we see in the present, how they contribute to a larger historical continuum, and our role as agents of history in making sure that the right thing gets done. And I urge the public to reach out to any organization, any contacts you've seen listed in the chat. You know, you hear all about different places, people to reach out to. Obviously, these you shouldn't have to air out your trauma just to be laughed at and condescended to. I think a lot about how expendable communities are the basis of Nazism, and how casting communities as expendable, casting their resources as expendable, casting the well-being and health of their children as expendable is the basic, that's the basis, there you go, of Nazism and fascism. And to pretend that any of us are unaware of this, and to pretend otherwise is also, you know, just more Nazism and fascism. I'm just, you know, it's a cliche, but it's a important poem. I'm just going to close this off with a poem by the Martin Niemöller that we're all very quite familiar with. They came first for the communists, and I didn't speak up because I wasn't a communist. Then they came for the Jewish people, and I didn't speak up because I was not a Jewish person. And then they came for the trade unionists, and I didn't speak up because I wasn't a trade unionist. And then they came for the Catholics, and I didn't speak up because I was a Protestant. And then they came for me, and by that time there was no one left to speak up. And I definitely want to echo all the sentiments of previous speakers and forming organizations and community outside of this, because as communities, we are entitled to all that, what our taxes are paying, all of this. It's stuff that's already been stolen from us, and we have every right to, it's all ours. And I suggest that we organize to take what is ours.
Next up is Charlie Crowderville.
Yes, good evening, members of the board. I'd like to start by thanking the New Brunswick community and all of our allies who have stepped up in this fight for our future. I'd like to clarify what happened with the first vote. Mr. Secretary, am I correct? The vote was 5 to 1 to 1?
That is correct.
Okay. And I heard Mr. Ferguson moved after quite a long pause. Who seconded for that one?
Give me a second, digging it up. The second came from Yalitza Checo.
Okay. And Ms. Lopez abstained. Would she care to share with the public why she abstained on that?
Ms. Lopez, you can answer if you'd like, and it's up to you.
No, not at this time.
Okay. Well, for the record, I really think it's preferable when board members share with the public why they're voting the way they're voting. So even though I didn't agree with all the votes, I thank the board members who at least gave us the courtesy of telling us why. I do have another question. Is it true that Mr. Ferguson resides in one of Devco's buildings and rents an apartment there?
I am not certain. I don't have that information. Aravind, do you have the information?
How about Mr. Ferguson, Calvin?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with his living arrangements, and frankly, there's it's not a question of inquiry that I had as to where he lived and who owned the building, but
I didn't hear all of that response, sir, but my question was for Mr. Ferguson. Does he reside in one of Devco's buildings and rent an apartment there?
Mr.
Is he
Ferguson,
still on the
you can
call?
answer the question. Mr. Ferguson, you can answer the question if you'd like.
Charlie, I think you know the answer to this question, but thank you for pretending to not know. I do rent a apartment in a building that was built by Devco. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I don't keep that close tabs on you, so I wasn't sure if you had moved or still lived there or not. Not trying to be oppositional. This is why I was trying to ask these questions, like, why didn't the attorney ask about conflicts at the beginning of the hearing? He mentioned he had a colloquy with you, but now he's telling me the colloquy did not touch upon this pretty a serious conflict here. So
Charlie, I rent an apartment. I rent an apartment. I pay rent for an apartment. I pay my rent to Penrose Management. I'm really not sure how this is relevant to these matters tonight.
yeah, it's not an inquiry that would make your participation in this application objectionable, is it's not a conflict. So I understand, Charlie, that you may believe that it is, and certainly that's your prerogative, but I'm guided by what case law says, and I don't believe that that's a conflict. Certainly,
okay.
If you had an interest
Yeah,
in it,
I'll just move on. I'll just move on. Okay.
Mr. Cradivo, you're out of time.
Well, I did just want to say that this is the Lincoln Annex School was the school that Mayor Cahill went to, and you have to be a special kind of sick to sell the school that you went to when there's not a replacement ready for the kids that are there today. After you got your turn to use it, after all those Italian and Irish kids got to use it, now that it's brown people, Mayor Cahill couldn't care less about them, and he should be ashamed of himself. And this board should not be cooperating with anyone like that.
All right. Next up is Jack Levinson.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. I am a pre-service teacher studying at Rutgers University, and I'd like to frame my comment by saying that as a teacher, I have dedicated my time, effort, and money to providing quality education to every child that enters my classroom. Teachers like me make great sacrifices to ensure that my students are well prepared for their future. Every member of the public attending this meeting can agree with me that Lincoln Annex School is a model school, as proven by its high performance. It's clear that you, the board, consciously chooses profit over people. Your decision to disrupt the community of New Brunswick causes these high-performing local students great harm. I will be firm in saying that the board has no right to silence the voices of the members of the public who have nearly unanimously disapproved of the building of the Cancer Pavilion. Please consider the following. Is this Cancer Pavilion truly serving the community by being built? How do you define the community? Do you consider underprivileged children part of the community? Or have you chosen to serve only those who can pay up? Children's lives and futures are at stake. You have shoved them to the literal margins of the community in the name of corporate profit. You will have to live with this decision for the rest of your life. It is a shame that the people of New Brunswick are nothing but pawns to you. Your abuse of power is irresponsible, and the community will never forget the damage you have done. Thank you. I yield my time.
Okay, next up is Matthew Mione.
Yep, I'm here. All right. So for anyone who doesn't know, what's going on with the Lincoln Annex School is not the first time the city of New Brunswick has done something like this. If you look up the A. Chester Redshaw School or the Paul Robeson Community School, this is all within the last 15 years. They use the same warehouse on 40 Van Dyke Ave, right off of Jersey Ave, to move the kids to.
Alternate school.
In the case of A. Chester Redshaw School, I mentioned the quote about Cahill said before, and they said it would take about 2 years to complete the school. That was in like 2005, 2006. School wasn't finished until 2015. So at the end of the day, not having a school ready to move these kids to and moving them to a warehouse is just on every single level absurd. I think we all know that, but obviously you're allowed to do it, so it's happening clearly. But at the end of the day, everything that went over, I do appreciate the board members who raised good questions and even ones that voted against certain things, because some of the stuff that was talked about in these board meetings the last few months is obviously beyond questionable to say the least. And in all those planning board meetings, the public got 5 minutes each to cross-examine witnesses. We were not, or their testimony, their answers were not did not eat up our time. Today we got shortened down to 3 minutes, and the answer eats into our time. It's just absurd. It's clearly you're trying to silence the public. It's just your minds are made up, or at least some of your minds were clearly made up before this project started, and have clear conflicts of interest that have been laid out thoroughly multiple times as well. So at the end of the day, I think everyone involved knows what's going on, knows what some of these people or some of the actors in this project, their motivations are. And like we said, DevCo has done this before. DevCo will continue to do this. It's really nothing new. It's very shameful as well. Charlie brought up about how Mayor Cahill went to the Lincoln Annex School when it was Italian and Irish and 99% white. Now that it's 99% black and brown students, the city doesn't care about them and wants to move them. I mean, it's just absurd. And I think everyone knows it's absurd. But at the end of the day, the board, I'm speculating, but probably didn't think there was going to be that much pushback. But clearly, there's an incredible amount of pushback from the public. Not a single member of the public in any planning board meeting has ever been on the side of this plan. It's always been against this plan. Every single meeting. It's truly absurd that the planning board isn't at the very least prolonging the vote to approve these plans. It's clear and biased and just absolutely shameful.
That's time.
Who's next on the list, Dan?
I didn't know I was muted. Sorry. Next is Michael Peterson.
Hi. I just want to start out by thanking everyone who's come in to oppose this absolutely absurd thing that is happening in New Brunswick. People are going to organize, and this isn't going to be the end of it. This is a disgusting use of power by everyone who voted for this to go through. To the board member who voted against it, thank you again. It's just it's frustrating. All right, you're doing all of this harm to kids. Why? It's absolutely absurd. It's absolutely absurd. If this was happening to your children, you wouldn't let this happen. It's just, I mean, at some point, it's, you know, you got to look yourself in the mirror, and I'm just so glad I'm none of you people. You know, the masses are the masters of history, and this is not going to be end of this fight. And there's a lot of serious opposition coming against all of you people. Thank you.
All right.
Who's next on the list, Dan?
Next up is Arlie Rubens.
Miss Rubin?
Hi, I'm here. Before I begin, I'd just like to ask the members of this board if they consider themselves public servants. Would anyone like to answer that for me?
I have no comment. Do any other board members have any comment to her question? It doesn't
Great,
appear
so that's a no. You should probably reconsider if you do. Next question, do you feel good about shoving children into a warehouse in the middle of a deadly pandemic? When we know that this is a pandemic that disproportionately affects people of color and their health outcomes? Would anyone like to answer that?
No comment.
Great, thank you. As much as you'd like to say that it's not your jurisdiction, it is absolutely 100% your fault. Members of this board have told us that previous parts of this application have passed and that sales have been made to suggest that this is over, but this is not over. You'll be seeing a lot more of us in the coming days, weeks, and months for however long it takes to, at the very least, bring public attention to your spinelessness, greed, and racism, but ultimately to stop this from happening. Since the point that Charlie brought up wasn't considered a conflict of interest, I'll share some things that are conflicts of interest, or at the very least should be. So some of us may know that 3 planning board members withdrew themselves from this process due to conflicts of interest, but that doesn't mean that all conflicts of interest have been eliminated. We know that Mayor Cahill has publicly supported this project from the beginning, and several members of this board regularly donate hundreds to thousands of dollars to his campaign, including Mr. Bignell, Mr. Dominguez, Mr. Stelatella, and Mr. Carley. Now, last night I said that Ms. Sikora Ludwig was the vice president of the New Brunswick Democratic Organization. She corrected me. Thank you so much. Very important distinction. Ms. Sikora Ludwig isn't the vice president. She's only an elected chairperson of the New Brunswick Democratic Organization, which
1 minute
basically,
warning, by the way.
I didn't need that, thank you. Which basically exists to funnel money into Mayor Cahill's campaigns, including nearly $11,000 in 2018.
Can I make a distinction on this again? I am not any type of officer in the New Brunswick Democratic Organization, just for clarification. So go ahead with your comment.
RWJ trustees and developers cannot reasonably be trusted to consider the interests of the public over those same trustees and developers. Thank you so much to Mr. Cardica and Mr. Petrolino for holding out for the people of this city as long as you did. Good night to everyone but Ms. Sikora Ludwig. We'll see your bright and shining faces in court.
Okay. Next up is Miguel Romero.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so as Nishad and other activists mentioned earlier, many of the activists activated by the fight to save the school were activated due to the blatant corruption in New Brunswick. We originally were brought in because it seemed like a really simple issue, you know, a public school being demolished and a private entity receiving the benefit from that. And as we continue to go into these Board of Education meetings, and which, for example, that's a public entity responsible for the education, safety, and health of the students in New Brunswick, we discovered that they did not have the interests of the students in mind. We discovered that the Archdiocese of Metuchen, the body that had a deed in the land contract stipulating that the Lincoln Annex could only be used as an education in an educational manner for the next 50 years. They, despite receiving letters from children and parents of the Lincoln Annex pleading to save their school, did not have their interest in mind and still sold the school with the Board of Education to Robert Johnson and Rutgers. We discovered that some of the members of the New Brunswick Planning Board, a board chosen by the mayor of New Brunswick, and not democratically elected by the public, does not care about the valid objections raised by the public. All of these bodies continually pass their responsibility to another body. If you go to, when we went to the Board of Education meetings, they would say, oh no, this is part of the planning board. And then they would say, oh no, this is part of the City Hall. And nobody wants to take responsibility for these actions that they're doing. And by the way, some of these in some of these meetings, we definitely learned how undemocratic it is for them to silence people that are objecting. For example, in the Board of Education, they silenced one meeting. They silenced about 80 people at the drop of a hat just because they decided to do it. And today we saw the time from 5 minutes to 3 minutes. Another thing that I should have really mentioned earlier is I don't think you ever really clarified what the stipulations are for somebody that's objecting to the plan from the public to have a witness provide evidence. Could you go into a little bit of that now that we have time?
Mr. Eitel, do you want to answer that question?
So generally attorneys call witnesses. Those are generally experts in some field, and the board recognizes after hearing the credentials of that individual what their area of expertise is, and in the discretion of the chair, the expert witness can be so certified, and the testimony that's provided is treated as that of an expert witness in that particular field. The general public can certainly have witnesses if they're not attorneys. Pro se objectors can always put on a case.
It's time, by the way.
If the case is nothing more than just a comment that individual can make on their own, and there's no proffer as to what area, number one, the area of expertise that individual is providing, or some relevant testimony to the application, and they can still make their comments. They're not silenced, they're not prohibited or muted in any way from saying what they'd like to say before the board, which is considered by the board. So that's my answer.
So in short, we were not allowed to have a witness appear before you because none of us are lawyers, is basically what you're saying. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Could you repeat that?
No, that's not what I was saying, and that's not what I said.
That's not what he said at all, and your time is up, sir. Who's next on the list, Dan?
Then what did you say?
Next up is Linda Stork.
Hi, yes. So yeah, as you know, was very opposed to having the center and where the school is supposed to be, and where the school still is actually, and the parking lot that requires the tearing down the neighborhood. I mean, reference was made to the fact that the representative of the owner of two of the properties on Hardenberg Street didn't object to the fact that he was going to have to sell out. But maybe you should ask the people that actually live there. None of them that spoke. Everybody was upset. So I don't see, I haven't heard anybody that lived in the 5th and 6th Ward that has, thought any of this was a good idea. The couple of parents that they managed to find at Lincoln Annex, that they're questionable. I won't go into that whole thing, but they're not representative of the parents there. And the alternative, clearly the interest and the good of the community as a whole is not being served. As I pointed out last night, we have multiple cancer centers already we could go to. This is not the place to put this is going to really negatively affect the neighborhood, not to mention the fact that as schools go out of the neighborhood and these types of things come in, it just makes the quality of life, it makes it hard to attract families. Already here, where I live is starting to just be rented to students now. And
1 minute warning.
most college kids don't have students in the public schools, but what happened to, trying to plan for neighborhoods and have a balanced neighborhood? The school where they want to be sent, first of all, it's not in the neighborhood. It's going to be huge, which makes me think they're also going to take down Lincoln, which is the one that needed to be replaced, by the way. Not the new one that the taxpayers of this city just invested 22 million into. Needed to take down Lincoln, and I think it's going down now because the new school is almost double, and schools of that size are detrimental to the academic achievement, especially of poorer and minority children. It's been proven in studies, mega studies, looking at every single public school, and it was replicated in 7 different states using the size of every public school in the state. They weren't picking and choosing. Across the board, the one factor that has been proven to mitigate the effects of poverty on education is the size of the school.
That's time, Ms. Stork.
Who's next on the list, Dan?
The last speaker on the list is Victor Vaughn.
Mr. Vaughn?
I'm here. I'm sorry the way I treated you. I'll learn to treat you right. It's hard, I've done a lot of messed up stuff in my life. But none of those ever involved, down a school with solar panels that's completely up to date. Perfectly good for, a whole generation of kids to learn in, and then cramming them all in like a warehouse that like is gonna give them all kinds of problems later on in life. That's evil. That's villainous. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how the hell I would be able to sleep at night doing that. Like I said, I'm no saint. I've done a lot of messed up stuff in my life, but that's messed up. You have not one single member of the public that has taken any time out of their day, especially for the last 2 days, to even come out and support this. I mean, doesn't that give you any kind of food for thought that like not one member of the public has come to this meeting or felt the need to voice the support or anything like that? I mean, if you actually are listening to members of the public, which, I really feel like you haven't been. I feel like, you keep, like yesterday we had 5 minutes, today we have 3 minutes, kind of just changing the rules up however you feel. Constantly interrupting us, muting us like, 3 times tonight and 2 times yesterday. Shout out to the one dude that voted no. Like, you're cool. You're cool. Everybody else, you're kind of monsters. I don't know what the hell is wrong with you. I don't know if you need therapy. Like, were you not hugged enough by your mother or something at like a young age, or like, you got. Hey, I wasn't cursing. I wasn't yelling. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. I think you're muted.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to mute you. I meant to unmute myself to give you a 1-minute warning, and I hit your button. I have your time paused. You can continue your last minute. I'm sorry.
You're good. Thank you. And, I'm sorry that, like, I let my temper flare before. And, like, you got a really tough job, you work for, or at least take orders from basically like a bunch of, like ghouls wearing human skin, except for the one guy. He's pretty cool. But, that one lady, oh my God. Are these public? Do these get recorded and then released to the public? These all become public knowledge, right?
It's recorded.
So does it eventually get released to the public?
If requested.
We can give you a copy of it if you do an Oprah request, I think. But
all right, so if you
maybe you'd like to hear some of the things that you called us.
Yeah, nah. Anything I called you doesn't really compare to what you're doing. You're sending black and brown kids into a warehouse, bro. So I would kind of lose the smile because that doesn't look good.
Honestly, calling someone a stereotypical drug dealer.
That's time. That's time.
All right. Have a good night, man.
All right. That's the end of the list, Chairwoman Sikora. Chairwoman, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me now, Dan?
Yes, that's the end of the list.
My apologies. Thank you. We have no other business to conduct this evening. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Bob Carter, motion to adjourn.
Second.
Checo second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Hi.
Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.